already the moderator.
Happy.
Yeah, well, that's, so, anyway, let's get started. Sarah, you wanna?
Yes, give me just a second.
ahead, it might be a good opportunity for our welcome and introduction to just note that we have one of our new Housing Commissioner members with us today, Heidi Bouquet. Did I say your name?
You did.
I think that's about as good as we're gonna get for right now. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, we are unmuted and we are ready to go.
And can you spotlight the camera? Is there a way to make that the primary thing folks see?
I believe so.
I'm a Zoomer, so I'm not as savvy on this yet.
You can spotlight him.
Most meetings I go to, the first 15 minutes is getting everything to work. We can do better than that.
Okay. I would maybe, Bill Bartline, can you hear us okay? Thumbs up? Okay,
Right.
okay.
You know, I want to start out, we usually do a mission minute, while we get kind of organized here. I wanted to just say that this is, the next phase of our efforts, to improve the situation for housing in Tillamook County. You know, we've studied the issue, professionally. We've, formed committees to work on the issue, which have been very successful. So now we're at the phase of actually, facilitating the construction of some housing units in the county. Tillamook County formed a commission, it's taken us a while to get to this stage, but I think we've done it the right way. I guess I'd like to acknowledge, Commissioner Bartline, for one, for his tenacity in promoting this commission. We have, we have Commissioner Scar, who is our liaison, and she has a background, a very strong background in housing issues, which is a great opportunity for us to, what goes in my saying. And then our staff is just, over the last number of years, has been absolutely excellent. Sarah Hatcher, TJ Fiorelli.
You got it.
You know, and we've been out, in this community, with the cities that are our partners on trying to improve the housing situation in the county. So I think we're at a good time and a new phase, so it feels pretty good. So we get to start with introductions. TJ, you want to go first?
Sure. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for everyone who has come today. This is an important day. My name is TJ Fiorelli, and I'm the Tillamook County Housing Coordinator.
Valerie Schuman, real estate broker, member at large.
John Bain, retired contractor, member at large.
Kristen Hudson, member at large. And Tim Apple. Joe Claire.
I'm Erin Absher, I'm the Director of Community Development. And for our guests online, if you are not speaking, could you kindly mute yourself, please? We are. So I did hear from some of our guests online. It is a little bit hard for them to hear, so if everyone could speak up, please, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
So we have Barbara McLaughlin online.
Yes, good morning, Barbara McLaughlin, North County.
Hi, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that's great.
John Mosley, I'm hanging out with Tyler Robbins, local contractor.
Tim, member representative, House District 32. 32,
Me,
Sherman, Reno resident, 75 Gregory.
Does anybody have anything else for mission minutes that they'd like to comment on that is going on in the community that's positive? Usually have a few things about it. This is positive, so. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sarah, could you up for that?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Bill Bartline, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm only hearing about a tenth of what's being said, especially in the background. So yes, I'm Bill Bartline, retired commissioner and a member of the Finance Committee.
Thank you. City of Cannon Beach?
Hello, Robert St. Clair, City Planner for City of Cannon Beach.
Elizabeth Whipperman?
Hi, Elizabeth Biberman, Oceanside resident and volunteer coordinator at Habitat for Humanity.
Lane DeMol?
Hi, I'm Lane DeMall, president of Nia Casa in North County.
NCD Oregon?
Hi, everyone. I'm Darren Murphy, one of the applicants on the agenda today. Thanks for having me.
Sandro? A guest by the name of Sandro?
Yeah, did you guys call on me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, I'm Sandro. I'm just listening in on the meeting today. If that's okay.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank
Trevor
you.
Bell?
Good morning, Trevor Belts, Government Relations with the Creamery and member of the Legislative Committee.
And we do have a number, a phone number, a caller calling in. Last four digits are 9508. Can you please press *6 to unmute and introduce yourself?
Hello, Alex Kazanis, just listening in. Thank you.
Thank you. And the 8042.
That's in 10 minutes, which is great. I'll try to talk a little louder, so, pardon me, I normally don't talk this loud, but, for the benefit of people online. I think we'll start out with, Hacienda is gonna do a little chat with us. They're a very experienced, affordable housing developer, and, we've met with them before, and we're excited to hear from them. So, what first should they go, TJ, to present?
Right up here, if you'd like, over next to Sarah. If you'd like to stand, you can also, if you'd like, we can grab some seats for you, whatever you prefer.
No, I can stand up.
Okay, great.
I've been in the car for an hour.
Oh, the hands over there. There you go. Right there. That's great. Thank you.
You sure do. I'm going to go ahead and share that right now.
So good morning. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, commissioners and the members, for your invitation. And I'm Marian Bollery, Director of Real Estate Development at Hacienda CBC. We are, let's open up the presentation. Hacienda is a Latino-based, Latino-led organization. We've been in business for about 30 years or maybe longer, 1986. We do develop communities. So we like to think ourselves not just as a housing, but as a community that we do develop. Currently, we do have 10 different communities. We serve about 747 units, And that number is actually too old as of last week when I put this slides together. We do serve about 2,000 individuals in the Portland metro area. So I just wanted to show you some of the developments that we're currently doing. This was in Collie neighborhood. It was a strip joint that was in that corner. The whole neighborhood got together and said, we need to develop this area. A bunch of different organizations got together, bought the land, got rid of some of the businesses in there that they didn't want to have in there. And Hacienda came and we got the land and we're developing this corner here. And then we have a corner on there that we're going to put some daycare centers and medical centers, because we have a huge community in that Collie neighborhood. This is not our only property. Go to the next one. This is in Oregon City. There was a huge agricultural land that was contaminated, and this is what the neighborhood wanted us to develop, a huge community with the community centers, parks for the children, and we also dedicated some of our units to the agriculture community workers on that area. And then on Gresham, which is our next property, so this is the property we developed in Gresham, in Rockwood area, which was very much needed. It was a very tight space. The county really worked with us. Right on the side that we can't see it probably on here, they rented us a land also for $1 a year, and we put a whole garden center on that section, so all the kids in the community that thought food comes from Safeway could actually go there, build their food, and then there's a whole market that harvests the food from that section and tries to sell it in that little community section. So we had the whole community to be involved in part of what we tried to build as a whole community in Rockwood. So this is just a set of, we just don't develop huge communities, it's just whatever is needed in the community. So I just left some examples of, we have some places, we have 6 units, we have places that are more like a townhouse. So it all depends on what the community needs and what people in that community want that place to look like, is what we're developing. So as I said, we go beyond housing. What we provide is not just housing for our residents. We provide quite a bit of services for our residents in the housing. We do have a resident services program. We try to help our residents to be good renters, to pay their rent, to learn how to really make it in their units, and be able not to get evicted in a sense, and be able to do that. Part of our goal is to work with these people so that some of them, they can get their income raised and work harder and want to become homeowners, know what it takes to become a homeowner. And we do have various programs for that. We also provide a lot of children services on there. Sorry. So we do have youth and family services. We provide a lot of services for children under the age of 6 years old. We do have a lot of after-school programs. We provide learning centers, like right now currently in 3 of our properties, we're building learning centers, and that is to do digital learning, not just for children, but for adults. It's open to the whole community. It's open to all of our residents. And it's a free program that they can get in, and they can use all the services that we have in our different programs. Sorry. We also do have a home ownership program. So what we do is you have to join our program and at least work with us for 6 months, minimum 6 months. Sometimes it takes 3 years to raise your credit. So we help our residents to work on their credits, to raise their credit. We educate them what the home ownership looks like, why you need to have some extra money so when your water heater breaks down, You still can make your payments and fix your water heater. And once they go through that program and we feel like they're ready, we actually will help them to put their down payment. So we are working with lenders. We do pay 20% of what it would be their down payment so they can save their mortgage insurance, so that they don't get hit on their payments with mortgage insurance. And we have the lenders to pay the 80%. So we are trying to get our residences, help them increase their income and move them from a rental ownership to actually home ownership program. And that's a program that we are developing and moving into the different counties so we can do that. We do have a small business incubator, Portland Mercado. So we bring in all the Latino-based, Somalians, Cubans, all the different businesses that don't have a way of getting their business started. We educate them. We have people that sit with them, teach them how to do financials, how to do budgets. We give them discounted rents over a 3 to 4 year period. And we try to help them build their businesses in Portland Mercado in the hope that they can move out of Portland Mercado and have a successful business. And we do have a lot of them that move out and do have restaurants or businesses that they can make a good living out of. So how do we develop? Normally, this is the process that we follow through. So we do listen. We do have community-based outreach with our architects that we do in every community that we go to. Even if it's a community we've already developed, we feel like this is what we need to do. We need to listen to the needs of what the community wants. So we listen, we do a lot of identify what the outcome should be, we research, we design, we go back to the community, we try to get feedback about our designs after we hear back what they want. And once we hear all the feedbacks and we've done all the research and we figure out what they want, then we come up with our final design for the communities that we go to. So here we are today in Telebec. Our hope is that we would create and maintain partnerships. We do come in Telebec with all of our services. We will hire people from this area to serve the community that we would build in here. And we hope that we become a partner and we will be one of the fixtures in this county. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. And if there's any questions.
Can you give us an idea of where you get your funding from?
Most of our fundings come from the state funding. We do a lot of tax credits. Yes. In Portland, we do metro bonds. In the rural areas, of course, the funding comes from the state. And I think as the state funding is changing, they're also requiring that local people would help you out a little bit in your funding in order to get the state funding. But that's where we get most of our funding from. And philanthropy, of course. We have had quite a bit of our relationships donating land to us in order for us to develop in the areas, and then we do get state funding in most of our states. And we do have a lot of syndicators that are willing to do tax credits, and that's where we also get into a new tax credit for some of our companies.
And yours? Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Has it ever been necessary for you to change the zoning to do this project?
It has, but it's because the city wanted us or the county wanted us to do that. So we are walking into neighborhoods in Eastern Oregon. The school district wants us to build right by the school. It was not a multifamily, and they're willing to change the zoning for us. Yes.
And how does that process go?
It's a process we work with the city, and the city normally agrees with our process, and we just go through the whole rezoning process with the city.
Many times the state is also involved.
Usually, if the landowner is willing to do it and the city and the state want, you know, they all want affordable housing, we work with all the parties to do that.
Thank you.
And we try to do our homework ahead of time. There may be areas that we may not be able to rezone. So we try to look at some of those areas ahead of time to see if the city and the state county is willing to work with us and want us to have workforce housing. Because I know a lot of times when I talk about affordable housing, we all have that image of rundown places and it's gonna look horrible and I don't really want it next to my house. It's okay if it's far away. That's why I wanted to show some of the things that we build. So as much as I would love to call it workforce housing, but just because it means a whole totally different thing to the state, that it has to be 80 to 120% of your average median income, I'm calling it affordable housing, but what we build is really nice looking places. When you drive by, you can't even tell they're affordable housing.
So how do you handle maintenance? Do you have on-site maintenance people all of the time?
We do hire property managers. They do have an on-site person that manages and lives on the premises. So we always dedicate one of our units to a property manager that lives on site. We do hire maintenance crews, landscaping, groundkeeping, cleaning, you name it, we have it as part of the crew that maintains the grounds and the surrounding areas.
How do you determine your rent rate?
Normally, they all have to go, if I understand what you're saying, who's allowed to rent in those places?
Who's allowed to rent and how much do they pay on an average?
It is all set by the state. So I think if I remember correctly, right now for a studio, if you're at 30% AMI, it's I think about $483 or $500 rent. I'm not sure what it is in Telemac, but I know that's what it is in Portland. It's all set by the state. They all have to go through a compliance report. They have to show that their income is at a certain level. So if I have units that are at 30% AMI, they have to qualify, or if at 60% AMI, they have to qualify. And it's annually checked, and that's how you pick through a whole rigorous process that's totally mandated by the state.
Thank you. Just to clarify, are the only people eligible for community services earning up to 50% AMI?
We can actually, by the state and syndicators, go up to 80%. We could build 80 to 120. Currently, the state does not have any funding for those traditional workforce, which is 80 to 120. We could build those. They would be considered market rate. It takes a little bit of a different amount of money and may need some kind of a support by the county that we go to. So we are looking at Hermiston, the school district would like us to have some 80 to 120% units for their teachers. And they're supporting us with those units because the state does not pay for 80 to 120. So they're working with us for those units and sponsoring some of the units so we could have teacher units dedicated for the school district for the teachers. So possibilities are there. It just takes a little bit of a maneuvering on what the state would allow you to pay and what we need a little bit of the support locally to do that.
Do you maintain ownership of all of your projects?
We maintain ownership of all of our properties.
I've got a question for you, Marion. So I was really interested in your Mercado, the incubator. I'm wondering if you partner with or collaborate with any of the regional accelerator and innovation network arms throughout the state, the RAIN organizations?
We haven't had it so far. It's been so successful for us. We've had a full area with Portland Mercado that we sort of have been doing it internally with a group of people and the staff that we've had that we have not had to, but we work with a lot of people to tell them what the model is that we're using. We've had people from Colorado that came 2 weeks ago to Portland to ask us, how did we do the Portland Mercado, how are we developing, how are we doing our affordable housing and the community and the services. But we've never had to go out and ask, we've never had any open space in our Portland Mercado to worry about doing any other thing. We have about 16 tenants right now in our Portland Mercado.
It's very exciting. And I really appreciated the wheel you showed with the design and how you really look for outcomes. It reminds me a lot of some work that I've looked at in the past from groups like Project for Public Spaces or other entities. Where have you gleaned from, and what successes have you had in presenting this to residents in terms of looking at the ideas?
They all love it. I mean, every project that we do about 3 months before we actually sit there and design. We go out into the community. We ask what the community needs are. And that's how we find out what the community needs. Do they need an extra room? Do they need a kitchen? Do they need this? They need an extra bedroom? This was too small. We get a lot of information from our community, and those are the things we actually, when we file for the state, we include some of our findings in there on why we came up with the design, the way we came up with the design, and why we added the things that we needed to add into our development projects. It's not like we came up with those, we actually had feedback from the community on what their needs are. And we do that on every project. All of our architects that work with us, all of our staff know that that has to be done. Every community we get into, we try to do that 3 months before we actually sit there and start doing the design.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and you're gonna stick around? Oh, I'm sorry, Cory.
You had mentioned that you had worked with school districts in Eastern Oregon. Are there districts besides Hermiston that you've worked with?
For the school district, other than the Portland metro area, no, Hermiston right now is the only one we're working on, but we would be more than happy to work with you in Savannah.
There you go. Any more? I'm sorry, I can't see.
Thank you very much for your time, I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
And you're sticking around, and you and John are sticking around
Yes,
to listen to the rest of our presentation.
yes, we are.
And I'd also recommend, if you have time to look at their website, I've looked at that several times, and you do wonderful projects. So.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, TJ, you got 5 minutes.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give a quick overview of how our presentations are going to go today. Those of you who have joined me at Toastmasters are pretty familiar with what I'm about to say. It's a variety of that. So you all, as presenters, will have 20 minutes, and we do need to keep the time on that 20 minutes. So after 5 minutes, I'm going to raise a green card that tells you 5 minutes have passed. After 10 minutes, I'm going to do the same thing with a slightly darker yellow card. Orange, and by the way, the 10-minute mark is where you might want to stop in order to allow for question and answer, although it's your budget for time and you choose to do what you would like. At 15 minutes, I will raise the 15-minute card, and then finally, at our hard deadline, at 20 minutes, I'll raise that card to let you know that your time is up. I wanted to thank everybody who was here today, as well as who was online. Those of you who are here today and who have sent me your presentations, those are queued up here. If you have not sent me your presentation yet, or we haven't connected yet, where you know that I have it in hand, please let me know. I think I'm looking out at the crowd, and most folks have communicated with me. If you are online, I would welcome you to go ahead and share your screen. A couple of you sent me your presentations, but you're online. That's perfectly fine. I will defer to you to share your screen and to speak. And what we'll do is I'll probably type in online the 5, 10, 15, and 20-minute mark.
Quick question. Is the Q&A session for Housing Commission members only, or is it open to the floor, just to be cognizant of the time?
I appreciate that question. I'd like to keep it to Housing Commissioners only. If there is enough time in somebody's presentation and the public would like to ask a question, that would be fine. But I want to make it clear that the questions coming from Housing Commissioners are the ones that the Finance Committee are going to be recording and going to be including in their final report when they look at the qualitative and quantitative information together.
TJ, just a quick overview of the process of this meeting, then Finance Committee, and then directly to the back to the Housing Commission, and then to the Board of Commissioners.
So yes, the Finance Committee will take the qualitative responses. You all have scorecards in front of you. Something I should mention, although you've seen it in my email, is that you'll be scoring 1 through 5 on each one of the 10 qualitative elements in front of you. That's what you as housing commissioners are able to add to the quantitative points that have already been applied based on the application that has been submitted and the responses within that application. Following today's qualitative responses, the Finance Committee will average those scores for each of the 10 categories. They will combine those with the qualitative responses and make some assessments about the true gap, the true need that's actually in there, given the pro formas that were provided to us. The Finance Committee will then wrap that up and have it ready for the Housing Commission to just give a final nod or review on October 1st before it goes to the Board of County Commissioners for final negotiations with our finalists.
Perfect. In terms of the agenda, we had one person that went through their applications. Should we put the Tumans in that slot, or do you have a preference of how you want to do that?
Yes, and so we have added Nate Palmer, and I believe I actually have the wrong person listed on here. You guys actually see Francisco Carrillo. My mistake there, he was the one who withdrew. I had intended to add Tyler Brogdon, who will be presenting from Bay City, and so he is on our list today.
So, okay, just to be sure then, the first would be Darren, and then Tyler after that?
That's correct.
Okay, and then, so Nate Palmer is the person, or?
Yep,
Okay.
Nate submitted, and we were very happy to get his application right under the wire. So he's here today to present as well.
And you have copies of that for us to take a look at?
You all have received the application, and you'll have an opportunity to look at it. You can send written comments to the Finance Committee before they meet. Today, we are focusing on the qualitative information. So I really encourage you to pay attention to the presentation. That is the true meat of what we're doing today. Score the 1 through 5, ask your questions if you need to in order to score those 1 through 5 qualitative elements, and then we'll combine that with the quantitative.
And then we're gonna get a minute or two after to fill this out, right, so we can let him and focus instead of worrying about the score sheet, right?
I think that's perfectly
Okay.
fair.
We're also gonna do a restroom break, since this is gonna be a longer.
We are
meeting.
giving, yes.
I'll look around and see who looks like they're really anxious to go. Darren, you're on the screen. Wave if people, you can't hear their questions. It's hard, and we want you to rule the questions fairly. So proceed, sir.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Sarah or TJ, would you allow me to share screen? I could put my PowerPoint unless you have it up there.
Yeah, try to.
1 second, Darren, we're working on that right now.
Excellent.
You should now be a presenter.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's see. I don't know that that's working. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I toggle back and forth. Did that come up on when I showed it?
I think we're working through it on our end right now, but I think yours is upright. So give us 1 moment to fix that. That should be that yellow. Put on a Mac. Darren, I think it's actually potentially the first Mac screen with the 4 squares that's blocking your presentation.
Okay, is that better?
And you might put it in presentation mode as well. We can see the slides on the side.
Excellent. Okay,
All right.
thank you, everybody.
I'm down.
Great. And if you can't hear me, I can't see the screen. Maybe just shout out or something. But thank you. And I also want to thank you for allowing me to do this remotely. I know it's not ideal. I'm juggling kids going back to school, and my wife is at a teacher retreat in Rockaway. So tough day to be there in person. But thanks for allowing me to do this remotely. And thanks, commission members. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd, and thanks for having me here today. So I'm Darren Murphy, and I'm here to talk to you for a few minutes about my project in Nehalem called Bayside Commons. So I'll get right into it. The first slide here just covers just an overview of the team that's involved in the project. So my company, North Development Group, will be the lead developer, sponsor of the project, and long-term owner of the development. I do have an MOU with CARE and Peter's team to provide resident services to residents upon completion and lease up of the building. And I'll be partnering with Cascade Management Company to provide ongoing property management services when the project's done. Cascade has been doing this for about 40 years, and they manage several projects in Tillamook and Clatsop counties. So they'll be a really great fit for the ongoing operations of the project when it's completed. So just a little bit about me and my background. I've been working in affordable housing development for over 20 years. Most recently, I was with a large national affordable housing developer handling all of their development work in the Western United States. So I was able to work on projects in many places like Colorado and Arizona and Oregon and Utah. And prior to that, I was with a nonprofit in Portland called the Housing Development Center. And that's another large nonprofit group who did a lot of work throughout the state of Oregon and also Southwest Washington. So during that time, I've worked on and led the development of over 1,500 units, just like what we're talking about today here for Bayside Commons. And the impetus of forming North Development Group in late 2021 was to really be more responsive to the needs of rural communities like Nehalem. So a lot of developers in the space that I work in affordable housing have really scaled up. And a lot of developers are hesitant to get into projects that are less than 50 or 60 units. And what I saw is a glaring gap, left a lot of rural communities out and a general lack of development capacity in rural places with developers that are willing to take on smaller projects. So I formed North Development Group at the end of last year to try to be more responsive to the needs of rural communities, to take on smaller projects and be a little bit more nimble in ways that larger developers are not able to do. Okay, so this slide covers some high points on the project. Bayside Commons will be 24 units of new construction located in Nehalem. All units in the project will be affordable to households at 60% AMI and below. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to set aside 4 of the units in the development to serve households and families at 30% AMI and below. So that's extremely low income. And those 4 units will be supported by rental assistance provided by the Northwest Oregon Housing Authority. This development is intended to be a long-term, have long-term affordability. So the initial term of the affordability with the state funding is 30 years. And it's very likely that upon expiration of that initial 30 years, it'll get renewed for another 30 years. So the hope is that the affordability will long outlive me and stay there for a long time. The development itself is being proposed as 6 fourplex buildings. We were really trying to be sensitive to the surrounding community, which is largely single-family homes. There's a mobile home park to the north. But instead of bringing in a large-scale 3-story multifamily building, we tried to balance that with a smaller design that would fit well within the neighborhood. So the site will consist of 6 fourplex buildings. And a secondary goal of the project is to be able to replicate this on smaller lots. So to take the fourplex design and maybe fit it on a standard 5,000 or 10,000 square foot building lot throughout the North Coast to be able to do more production in the next couple of years. So the site will be oriented around outdoor space for residents. We plan to have outdoor garden areas for families. We have a play area set aside for children. And all of these units will be certified Earth Advantage energy standards. So that'll mean energy efficient envelope, energy efficient HVAC and appliances. So it'll be really, really energy efficient for the residents and for long-term viability of the project. The table in the upper right is just a breakdown of the unit mix. So we'll have a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units to be able to serve households of varying sizes in the community. This slide is just a quick overview of the location. Many of you are familiar with the Bayside Gardens neighborhood. This site is located in Bayside Gardens on a 1.5 acre property. It's virtually flat, which is great and hard to find in the coastal areas. And the site is right between Manzanita and Nehalem. So it's really going to be a great site for location and access. Residents can have access to services and jobs in Manzanita and Nehalem. The schools will be in Nehalem where folks will go. There's transportation on 101 close by. So as far as a rural location goes, this is a really great spot, and we expect the residents to have very good access to all they need in the community. Okay, just a little overview of the funding here. So the big funding piece for this project came from the Oregon Housing Community Services LIFT program. That provided about 75% of the funding for the project, and that funding was awarded a couple of weeks ago in early August. And I think folks are familiar with some of OHCS's funding programs, but the LIFT program is a capital program intended to provide funding for new units throughout the state. It's a highly competitive program. And to give you a sense of just how competitive that was this year, there were 33 applicants for the funding that they released, and they awarded funding to 14 projects, and Bayside Commons was one of those. So I think that's a testament to how well the state thought the project was put together, and how supportive the state was of the goals of the project. The development also has a commitment from CARE Oregon through their grant funding program, which we're working through the contracting on now. And as I mentioned earlier, 4 of the units will be supported by rental subsidies from the Northwest Oregon Housing Authority. So those 4 units will have a 20-year contract for rental subsidies. Those 4 units that we designate will remain tied to those rental subsidies for the duration of the contract, which is 20 years. So it'll ensure long-term affordability on those units at 30% AMI. Okay, and then just to quickly cover the request here to the county, again, thanks for taking the time to review the application they submitted. I have made a request for $120,000, which is the equivalent of $5,000 per unit. And the main reason why is to fill that final gap in the project. As I mentioned, there are some other funding sources committed to the project. This $120,000 will fill that final gap. And what's really driving that final gap is the unpredictability and the kind of the ups and downs of the construction market. We've seen construction costs increase 12% in the last year. In the first couple of years of the pandemic, it was at least that, maybe more. So costs are really unstable and really unpredictable. And one of the real challenges of doing this work, and particularly using state funding, is we're being asked to forecast costs often 18 months before we start construction. So we do our best to forecast those costs, to try to predict what that market's going to look like in 18 months. But sometimes we're there and sometimes we're not. And so this last $120,000 will fill that gap and give us those dollars needed to combat the recent escalation in construction costs in the last year. Okay, and finally, just a quick snapshot of the schedule here. So I purchased this site in 2017 with the intent to do a project like this in the future when the timing was right. And this last year, the timing was really right. Oregon Housing and Community Services has what I would call kind of a new commitment to fund new housing units in rural communities. So this was a great year to make application to the state of Oregon. They are really behind rural projects like this. So I submitted that application in April. I just heard in early August that the project was awarded funding. And that was enough to turn the design team loose on final design work. We anticipate that all design work will be done by the end of the year. And then that'll allow us to submit for building permits. We expect the building permit process to take 3 to 4 months. And that will put us nicely into starting construction around April 1st of 2023. From there, we expect construction to take about 12 months. And then upon completion of the buildings, we expect the units to lease up fairly quickly in just a matter of months. So, well, thank you again for allowing me to be here today. Hopefully we've left enough time for questions, and look forward to answering anything that you may have. Thanks.
Darren, you just nailed the 10-minute mark, so it's perfect. Very nice.
Excellent. I'm going to try to stop sharing the screen there.
I have one. Are there any ADA issues involved in the project? I know there are 2-story buildings with walk-ups, but there's ground floor.
I caught that question. I think that was from Ed, is that right?
Yeah, just kind of ADA accessibility in the project?
That's a great question. Thanks, Ed. So the project will have a minimum number of fully accessible units. So the minimum standard typically is about 5%. We're in the process of doing the final design work to determine if we can do more than 5% of the units as accessible. All ground floor units will be what we call visitable, so able to be accessed by folks with mobility issues, which would include a bedroom and a bathroom. So the half of the units will be visitable. The second story units, unfortunately, will have access by stairwells. So those will be obviously less accessible, but certainly a minimum number of accessible units, and then all the ground floor units will be visitable.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, question. Can you tell us how this project fits into what's there already in the community? Is there some kind of integration of the project or that?
Yeah, I think I caught most of that question. I believe the question was, how would it integrate into the community? Is that correct?
Yes, and what kind of value added may be bringing to that community?
Great question, thanks. So this site, if you can see from the aerial overview, it's a bit of a flag lot. So it's right between the Wildwood Mobile Home Park and then some single family homes on the other side that are adjacent to Bayside Gardens Road. So we expect this design to fit well within the community. Again, it was really intentional not to build a big 3-story apartment style building. So the scale of the project was really intended to mirror what's in the existing neighborhood. So kind of spaced out buildings around lots of green space and no more than 2 stories, so that it does fit within the context of that neighborhood. The site will be accessed off Bayside Gardens Road through, again, it's kind of a flag lot shape. So there'll be a ingress egress that connects out to Bayside Gardens Road, and we'll be bringing in utilities from that side of the street. I think the intent is to have pedestrian access out to Bayside Gardens Road, and I believe there's at least a bike lane on Bayside Gardens Road that residents can access by walking. So does that answer the question?
What are your thoughts on doing a second phase? I know your property, you have more property that could be developed.
Oh, that's another great question. Unfortunately, I don't own the southern part of that site. I purchased the 1.5 acres, but there's another 1.5 acres to the south that's owned by the gentleman I purchased it from. I've kept in touch with him, and I think there could be potential for a second phase. I've heard a lot of interest in the community about doing some home ownership units. So having a balance of rental units and then units that folks could purchase. So I know there's a few folks out there working on home ownership models where we could build potentially affordable purchase units. And I think if there were a phase 2, that would be my goal, is to try to do something like that.
Question?
I'd like to hear a little bit more about the green space and the livability for families there. It's a 1.5 acre space and and then with parking, you said that would be room for some gardening and playground. But what percentage of the property, or basically?
That's a really great question. I should have included a site plan on here. Currently, we're showing 3 different areas for garden space. So 4 of the buildings will be oriented around a common courtyard, which will have garden opportunities. And then at the southern end of where the drive aisle kind of connects to the neighboring property, we're also looking to do some more community garden space there. And then between 2 of the buildings, there'll be a play area for children. So it's a fairly, I think the layout is fairly conducive to having outdoor space and allowing residents to build community there. We did maximize the density with the zoning, and we are planning to do the minimum number of parking spaces required, which we think will be adequate for the residents. But it did still leave quite a bit of space for for open space. I don't have the exact percentage, but my guess is it's probably at least 20%, 15 or 20% open space.
Barbara, are you on? Do you have a question? Just give you opportunity.
That was my question as well. Thank you.
Darren, what is the footprint of the four buildings? Are they all the same in terms of up and down?
Yes, all the buildings will be the same with the exception of one of the buildings, which will have an office and a small community room for residents. So essentially, those will be the same footprint. We'll just have an attachment on one of the buildings for that kind of administrative space. I believe the footprint is 1,800 square feet, because I think they're 3,600 square foot buildings total. So 1,800 square feet is the bottom floor footprint.
Is there going to be any sort of energy efficiency or environmentally friendly options or building options? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole project will be certified through the state's Earth Advantage program. And that's a really comprehensive program that looks at site issues, location issues, materials procurement issues, and then obviously energy efficiency issues. So that program has like a 10-page checklist that we go through, and there are standards. You can hit silver standard, gold, or platinum. And it really looks at, are you disturbing wetlands? Are you impacting endangered species? Are you putting in energy efficient windows? And are you getting your materials from places that are sustainably sourced versus bringing them in from overseas? So it's a real comprehensive program that looks at the whole impact of the project. And the goal would be to achieve as high a level of certification as we can for the development.
Any other?
Yeah, Darren, what's the range of the square footage of the unit?
That's a great question, Tom. Let's see. The one bedrooms, I believe, will be about 650 square feet. Two bedrooms, about 820 square feet. And then the three bedrooms will be about 1,100 square feet. And just to add on to that just a bit, those ranges are really driven by the state of Oregon. They have a sort of a box we have to fit into. They don't want to see units too small, and they don't want to see units too large for cost reasons. So we try to be right in the middle of that range that the state prescribes.
Hey, other questions? Yes.
I don't have a question. This is Peter for those that are online. Just wanted to make a statement that in addition to being a resident services partner with Darren, there is also a fiscal relationship as well. So just for the record, so that that relationship doesn't create any sort of aspect of this, I'll be with him. So just letting you all know and letting those that are here, because of that relationship, I don't want Darren's project to be affected by the appearance of a conflict.
Ed, did ask what was the name of the program that Darren just mentioned, and can Peter, then when Darren is done, please summarize again what you just said.
I think that was broken up just a little bit. I think the question was the name of the program that involves the fiscal sponsorship relationship. Is that right? That program is through Columbia Pacific CCO. They have a regional housing impact fund, and I was successful in getting a $300,000 grant from those folks. And because of the structure of the project and not having a nonprofit in the ownership, CARE and I, Peter and his team and I are talking about CARE being the recipient of that grant and then loaning it to the development for development and construction cost purposes.
Excuse me, this is Barbara. I was referring to the program that about the energy efficiency and the environmentally friendly qualifications. Thanks.
I'm sorry, Barbara. It's called Earth Advantage.
Okay, I think to stay on time, we're on it. And we'll take a minute or so for people to fill out their application. Thank you, Darren, for presenting.
Thank you, everyone.
Please fill out your card. You can pass them, I'll actually just keep them and take them at the end rather than doing the passing shuffle, given how many folks we have here today, which is great. While Tyler is coming on up here to the front, you all can finish those up, and then we'll go ahead and get started with that presentation.
Darren, I'm gonna go ahead and turn your camera on.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody ready? Tyler, you want to present?
Sure. Morning, guys. I'm Tyler Brogdon, owner operator of Coastal Homes. Here today, we're working on a development in Bay City called Hobsonville Highway, right on the northern side of Irving Road. I'm here today basically because we want to create some duplexes in there. We want to get 20 units in there on phase one. You want to see that up? Yep. And as it sits right now, there's just a large gap in money to offer them at workforce housing price. Currently, we have about $1 million gap, and not the best public speaker, bear with me here. Yeah, so we're trying to get in 20 units in phase one. We have about $1 million gap right now. I'd like to get it down to about 80% AMI and offer them to our workforce housing. The city of Bay City has already came in huge, and they're going to put in about $750,000, and they're paying for the sanitary lift station. So part of that being this property's never been developed and it sits so far below the sewer grade, and so it's never penciled out for anybody. I mean, it would never pencil out, and the city has signed off, and we are going to dedicate that piece in phase two back to them, and they are going to pay for the sewer lift station. And so we're still short about $950,000 to get it down to an 80% AMI. And so that's why I'm here. We're looking for some money so we can offer them at a decent rate. I could raise it up to 120%, which I'm not really trying to do. And you know, we have a need here for workforce housing, and I feel like if I raise it to 120% AMI for 2-bed, 2-bath, that's about $2,200. And if I do that, I feel like I'm more part of the problem than the solution. You know, maybe everybody doesn't want to live in an apartment building, but they can't afford a house or a duplex for rent. And so, trying to chisel that number down. So this is right, that's the old highway right here. This is Hobsonville Point Road, this one. Just right where 4th and 5th Street come together in Bay City and they taper into one. That's actually the old Highway 101. And so the east side, the top of your screen there, that is the very end of urban growth in Bay City. You see the railroad tracks down here on the bottom. So this is Larson Cove. The bay would be right over here.
Can you help us understand your phasing? You can point to, maybe show us what you're thinking.
Yeah, so this is phase two, and this is a very preliminary site plan. So really, these lots in phase one is gonna become 10 bigger lots, and we're gonna do 10 duplexes in phase one. And then in phase two, we'd like to get in 3 or 4 fourplexes back there. It's a little steeper ground, so it's harder to do, you know, they're not gonna have a backyard in phase two. They're gonna kind of be built into the hillside. So we're thinking maybe some 0 lot line houses back there. And phase two, we really wanna touch on, veteran housing. That's what I'm leaning for phase two. I feel like they get the back door and everything we do, and, we all wouldn't be sitting here freely if it wasn't for them. That's obviously later on. I'm really here for phase one today.
Is there wetland on there, Val?
Yes, that is all soon wetland.
What does that mean for your development?
That means a delineation and all kinds of hoops to jump through, which is in process right now. We're on the schedule, through Schott and Associates, so they'll be doing this wetland delineation for us. We also have the we're in a geological hazard overlay zone, so that's all on the schedule. There's just a lot of hoops to jump through. That's part of the reason the cost is driven up so much on this piece of property. It's not flat. There is all kinds of obstacles to jump through. It's doable though. It's doable.
Let's have some questions.
So Tyler, can you tell me about your experience building in Pullman County and just your background a little bit?
Yeah, so I've been building for about 17 years, nails. I've been a general contractor for myself for almost 4 years now. Just doing a lot of single-family residential homes right now. I do have a few multi-family homes under my belt. We're actually building one right now. We finished one a couple of years ago. And that's it.
Thank you, Ed. So Tyler, so there's a gap there, and you've talked about the studies and different things that you need. So if you had to prioritize what you need the most with the ask of this grant, can you explain a little bit more about kind of what would make or break this project in relation to your presentation today?
The geological hazard report. So that one's gonna be huge. So there's some serious amount of earth that has to be moved. And a big ticket item is whether that soil can be used as engineered fill or not. So if the soil that's on site, once you get down, it's good enough that we can use that for fill, I mean, that's gonna save us monumentally. Otherwise, that's all getting trucked out and rocks getting trucked in.
Can you explain that a little bit more in layman terms, the significance of that? Just like, I mean, because you want to be able to use that fill, correct?
Yes, we wanna be able to use the dirt that we excavate out as fill for part of the roadway and the hammerhead turnaround in the bottom. And if we can't use that fill as engineered fill, then we are trucking all that dirt out and bringing in rock and doing it all in lifts with rock rather than dirt that's already on site.
Have you factored that in, sorry, Tyler, I have a question for you. Have you factored that into your cost estimate?
Yeah, that's why the excavation number is so high. That's worst case scenario.
Who makes that decision about whether you can use that fill or not?
So that'd be Northwest Geotech is who I use from that geological surveys, and, that's really up to them. Whatever is in that geological hazard report comes back, and we go from that, and the engineers take that and run with it.
It's based on what the fill is composed of.
What kind of dirt and what the compaction rate is on that dirt once it's been excavated and then set back down. Can it compact back to native compaction rate or not?
Could you talk a little bit about some of the aspects of landscaping and green space and all those type of issues?
Yeah, so we actually will have a lot of green space. So there's, like TJ mentioned a second ago, there's a huge area of assumed wetland. Locals of Bay City, we've always called it the Beaver Pond. And we all used to play down here, and my family used to pick blackberries here up until last year. And so there's a big area down there. And what we're trying to work with is a nonprofit organization to come in, take that wetland and turn it into usable space. You know, you or I, we can't just go in there and plow trails through the wetland, and we're not allowed to do that. But there is nonprofit organizations out there that work with the state, work with DSL, and they can come in there and turn that into a usable green space. And then you also have the railroad track in the top left of your screen. It's not labeled there. And the Salmonberry Bike Trail is going to be coming right through there. So that's kind of a huge part of this too. Is there's already an old cat road that goes right down the railroad tracks. And we want to play on that. We want to turn some of that wetland into usable green space and have their own bicycle trail that ties right into the Salmonberry Trail. It is coming. I mean, you guys are probably more aware of that than I am, but.
We're working.
Yeah, it's coming. Railroad's
I
coming
love
for
how
many days.
confident you stated that. That's my kind of language right there.
Good question.
Just in terms of these are the phase one single-family dwellings, right?
Multi-family, it's going to be 10 duplexes.
Oh, gotcha.
So this was really preliminary site plan that we kind of put together to present to the city of Bay City. And, they need housing in there so bad, they're kind of leaving it up to me. You do what you want to do in there. And I think it makes more sense to do 10 duplexes in there rather than a bunch of single-family homes. And part of it is the contour of the land. So to get 18, 20 buildable lots in there, 10,000 square foot lots for a single-family home, it's going to be difficult. But, conditional use, we could do multifamily, shrink that lot size down a little bit. They'll have big backyards and a lot of shared green space. And I think to get that density in there, that's what I need to do.
Good question.
Tyler, can you talk about how Bay City has come to the table and some of your communications with them, if you want to talk about that at this time?
I think I did a little bit, but I can reiterate that. So Bay City actually came to me and asked me if I would be interested in developing anything in Bay City. We do a lot of business in Bay City. I built 3, 4, or 5 houses in there a year. And so it got brought to my attention. And I spoke to Roy and Leanne. I said, man, I've always wanted to develop this piece down here. And they said, give us a letter of intent, and we'll entertain using our surplus of SDC money for that sewer lift station. And so I gave them a letter of intent. We put it in front of the council. They signed off on it. So they will be putting that lift station in there.
So that would be counted as additional sources of funding, if it's way.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's the old open camp property?
No, see, that's the other benefit to this too, is so not only does this open up this 11-acre plat to be developed, Old Camp property on the other side of Hawsonville is also below sewer grade. Plus you have a big tract of land that's about 6 city blocks on the north side of 4th Street up the top, but it's always been over the knob and it's below sewer grade. So it opens up the stuff above me and it opens up the stuff, Old Camp, all Old Camp. Yep, and that's all inside urban growth and it's never been developed because it's been below sewer grade. And before the city said, if you were gonna develop it, you were paying for the lift station, so everybody always, hands up, walked away, nobody can pencil that into it. And, it's not the case anymore, they are willing to do it.
And could you talk a little bit about, the construction work itself, when it comes to like energy efficiency, ADA, what would that look like?
They're all gonna be single-floor units, single-story homes, right? So a lot of them, I think there is a percentage that has to be ADA. I can't think of that off the top of my head. In the construction, everything is energy efficient nowadays. Even just to meet the energy code for Oregon, you have to be energy efficient.
So Tyler, you're in your pre-development phase right now, and those who are on the Finance Committee and the Housing Commission know the 5 different steps that we were looking at. You're real early in your phasing.
Very early. Only own the property for 3 weeks.
Tell us this is very rushed. What is your sort of 1 year, 2 year, maybe 3 year outlook? How can we expect this to move forward?
So by the end of next year, a lot of this depends on things that I can't control. First and foremost would be the wetland delineation and the geological report. And so my goal would be 10 months from now, breaking ground, pushing dirt. By the end of year 2, I'd like to have at least half of phase 1 done, which is doable. Completely doable.
Other questions?
Thank you. Sorry, we have one additional question. So the other infrastructure and access to public services, I'm not that familiar with this area. So the city of Big City would be putting in the roads and.
No, I'll be building the roads. What they're paying for is they're gonna put the sewer lift station, and that's called the force main. So So the force main is the one that comes out of that sewer lift station, goes clear back up the hill in 4th Street into the actual sewer main. And I'm responsible for bringing the water trunk line in, and I will build roads and develop everything. They're gonna let me vacate all the cross sections, and then I dedicate the road back to them when it's done and give them the piece of ground that the lift station's on. So during the replat, that'll all be done in the replat.
So with there be sidewalks and lighting and all of that, and the
Yes. Yeah.
Is that a requirement by the city?
No. In Bay City, there is no requirement for curb gutters or sidewalks.
And water's no problem?
Water's no problem, water's the easy one.
We don't hear that often.
Yeah, sewer was gonna be the hard one.
Okay. Any of this who's going to maintain these?
We'll have to hire a management company to do it. I'd like to think I'm gonna do it myself, but, I don't think that's gonna happen. I do plan on maintaining ownership forever on this though.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, folks, well, we actually had about 7 minutes left over in that presentation, so this is a good opportunity for a bathroom break.
There you go. May I?
Let's do it. Close the meeting. Yeah.
I feel like I remember this.
What do you want to do?
First run.
Yeah. Hi. Fantastic. The exercise is just so exact. I'm generally never in favor of these centers. Sure, we took them. Not a formal rating.
That's with the rating latte, but I was running late.
Oh, my gosh.
And Michelle literally brought me.
Well, you could have brought me one.
I could have brought you one too. I was gonna go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's like getting dressed in the car on the way over here. Yeah. Good morning. How are you?
Okay, so it's gotta be. Okay, that's. Yeah, I just think it's average.
Same thing. I have dogs scheduled out for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
I was gonna take the day off and they said, oh, no, that's I feel like. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
We need to get going here.
Right? Won't be that.
Is everybody situated and ready to go? Good. Can you hear on the Microsoft Teams, everybody here?
That's good. I just want to make sure we can see you guys and have a small microphone.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, my name's Robert Schuman, this is my wife Peggy. We're residents of Wheeler, owners of Coast Construction, and owners of 75 Gregory, a 5-unit apartment building that was originally built to house the families of patients for the Reinhardt Clinic when it used to be where the Wheeler Hotel is now. This is what it looked like when we got it. It needed a little bit of work, but we thought we were a good fit to do the work, and we are. You know, running our own business and employing people here in this area, we've put people in motorhomes in our driveway to have them to come to work. We've, you know, I've got a couple of my guys where, you know, I paid the property owner to let them live there or whatever. You know, it's just been a real struggle to house employees and get people, you know, good quality employees in this area. And so this building came along, and we thought, you know, this is the answer. And it was real rough. It's an old building. Give us some more. And it took a lot of work. There's actually a river under this building, Gervais Creek, and there was also a river running through this building. It came in the top and ran out the bottom. So we've owned it for a year and a half. We've done a lot of work. We repaired all the dry rot. We've cleaned out the outside yards. The neighbors were using the place to park their cars, you know, have their friends, whatever. And so we got it all cleaned up. Keep going with the slide. So we put up fences, you know, so our property's secure and safe for the new tenants. We've actually had a survey done and claimed our property back so it could be used. And as we've been able to, you know, between a full-time work schedule and, you know, funding everything ourselves, you know, we've done a lot of work to this building. So now we don't have water running through the building anymore, which is real nice. And we're getting ready to rent them out. You know, when I originally budgeted this job, it was before COVID, and prices have just gone up a ton. You know, we're rehabbing them all with all new kitchens. This is the floor plan. We have a 2-bedroom on the back end, and the rest are single-bedroom units. The 5th unit will have to be in a second phase, but the 4 upper units and the laundry room will be available for tenants. So, you know, we're asking for this money, and with the grant of this money, we can have 4 units ready to enter into the marketplace in 2 months. You know, we just need some funds. So we've done most of the outside of the building. We poured a new sidewalk, you know, cedar shingles, a beautiful forest green trim. It's really going to be a nice courtyard apartment, good for families, good for our community. We have great support from our city, from our neighbors, both commercial and residential, that really, you know, really glad this property's changed from what it was to what it is and what it's going to be. And you know, we just need to get some workers housed. You know, and that's it. That's it. You know, so we're not as, I mean, there's a lot of real big, good projects that I'm hearing today. But like I said, we could have 4 units ready to rent to our community in 2 months to get this done.
I noticed on your application, 3 units were up to 120% AMI. And then one of the units was 60 to 80 AMI.
I'm gonna have to defer to Peggy on this.
Those, I felt that they were really 80, they could be possibly 80s on some of them, or 20, or 120. Due to the fact that, most 1-bedrooms will probably have 2 people in them. So that was my thought. So it kind of ranges between the 80 and 120, varying upon where it lands. We're at that point because materials went up on us after we purchased. When we refied the property, the same week we refinanced everything. skyrocketed. So what we had budgeted no longer fit the budget. So then it became 2 days on site every month. That's all we could afford. You know, so here we are, and we're down to less than 20,000 on most of them on the top floor. With this, we could get them off the ground in 60 days with funding, possibly less time. They're already ready to be rented. I'm working with the hospital up above us. So we've got one there already. She's talking us a bit. She wants to give me money so bad, and I won't let her. And then there's another gentleman up there that actually does another unit of the hospital, and he's contacted me. He's chopping us a bit, offering the same. So most of these will actually be rented with guaranteed renters. The hospital will back them. Our current rental that we have right now, it's a 2-bedroom home with an additional, like, bonus room on it. And that was rented through the hospital, and it was guaranteed. They sponsored the deposits. All the deposits were done by them. So the family had a lot less to worry about, even just being able to make the move possible for everybody. And we don't want to see them go. They actually wrote a letter for us. So, you know, all of our tenants prior to that, the tenants that we have now have been able to purchase a home in order to move, and we'd like to see that with all of our tenants. This one's going to be a little more difficult at the rate, but since we have to stay within that for the next 10 years to meet the grant, I feel that the way things are going, I think that rate will be okay, and for them to able to try and take something in the budget or something.
Peggy, will you remind me how many total units there are again?
There's 4 on the top,
Okay,
and that's the ones that we're focused on.
okay. Okay.
It has another, behind it, let's go back to the first one. It's a 2-story building. So, the bottom is considered commercial.
That's not true. The bottom is a daylight basement. You know, it opens to the other driveway, and there's one, residential rental down there. The rest is considered commercial.
There we go.
The city requires it.
So there's the back side of the building. And so
5 units total.
It will be 5 units total for this phase.
Our businesses occupying the lower levels already?
Our business has storage down in the lower level at this point, but we're open to any, you know, future ideas.
Is it not an option to change the zoning to allow for more residential?
City of Wheeler really insists that there's, in our zone, and it's a commercial zone, that there is the first floor has to be commercial. There's a lot of different properties in our neighborhood that are having that argument with the city right now. We're grandfathered in with it being a 5-unit apartment building, so they couldn't take that 1 unit away, or they didn't, see a need. But yeah, they do appreciate the fact that the rest of it's commercial. Might be nice for an art studio or something like that at some point. I mean, I don't know what the future brings, but that's phase 2.
You said something about the nature of a remodel versus a new build. Like, this is a remodel.
Definitely.
All our other ones are new builds. And yet the funding that you're asking for is very similar. Does it cost more to remodel?
Well, there's a lot of money spent in rehabbing the condition of the structure. And we're providing a completely remodeled unit all the way across. So a lot of that is new construction, just on an old frame, right? You know, all new fixtures, all new drywall and paint, all new flooring, all new everything. New doors, windows, everything's energy efficient.
Well, I want to speak, I'm Bob's sister, and Peggy's my sister-in-law, so I want to acknowledge that. But, Bob, I'd like you to speak to the water that was coming off the mountain and the drainage you had to put in to save everything.
Yeah, so, well, like I said, Gervais Creek runs right under our building, and actually, what was it, I don't know, 8 years ago, there was a huge flood there at the bottom of the Wheeler Hotel, flooded with 8 foot, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of that water coming off the hill, was running across our parking lot and underneath our front doors of the upstairs and running out the bottom of the downstairs. You know, so we pulled that sidewalk out, and the sidewalk I designed and poured, besides just man against the elements, flashing the unit to keep water out, and then the sidewalk I poured just absolutely stopped the water. We had torrential rains after it was poured, and I have no more water coming through my building. But I put in parking lot drains, I put in sidewalk drains. The old sidewalk tipped towards the building. This one tips away, and it has a curve that kind of prevents surface water from flowing, as well as keep, they used to have a problem there with cars doing a 3-point turn from parking running into the building. And so I have a curve that stops that, or you know, I mean, they can still run over the curb, but they never did it. You know, so we've just eliminated all the water running through the building. The building is very structurally sound now. You know, and also, the city got a grant to redo all the drainage on that block because of that creek, and next year they break ground on that. And they're gonna add another parking lot drain in our parking lot and below us, behind the Wheeler Hotel, and just all the drainage off that creek is getting improved. So, yeah, we won't have any problem with that any longer, I mean, unless the hill just falls on all of us, right? Yeah.
What, I guess, you were saying it's 2 months to completion approximately.
Right.
Can you tell us what stage of construction it is on the interior? Or what needs to be completed, what would be done
So
funding?
essentially, and it varies a little bit from the back of the building to the front. I have new floors going in, new cabinets going in, finish off the bathrooms and kitchens, you know, all the way down the line. But the front unit, I have to get an electrical contractor in and have them certify the electrical so I can get the power turned off. Apparently, 10 years ago, the old owner was getting an electrical bill even though no one lived in the unit. They had a jumper wire running to the house next door for many years, I guess. So that power's been shut off, so I have to have it certified before I can go on, or before I can have the power turned on. So there's, with a few, you know, exceptions per unit, basically I just, new floors, new kitchens and bath. It's all ready to go. I have, you know, so I just need to be able to pull my crew off other projects and set them there to finish up.
Barbara has a question.
Yes, thank you. Can you, Peggy or Robert, can you tell us about the ADA accessibilities and what kind of green space or playground or what the outside's going to look like?
So as far as ADA, 2 of the units are very accessible. There's a little higher step on the back units because of drainage on the sidewalk, but 2 of them are very accessible. I'd say the bathrooms are usable, but I don't know that I'd call them completely ADA bathrooms. As far as green space, I'd say the building takes up 40% of the space on top and 40% of the space on the bottom. You know, there's 2 driveways. We have a lot of natural foliage, as you can see in the pictures, and we've been in negotiation with the house I told you that was still in Powerton building 10 years ago. Well, it fell down 2 years ago, and it's a lot that I've been in negotiation for that really just completes my driveway. And they really can't build a house there because of easements for my property. They'd have to go to extreme measures to do it. So we've been in negotiations. I think with the economy slowing down, I think he'll be more inspired. But once I'm able to secure that lot, that will be you know, a playground and a picnic area for the tenants. There's also a back courtyard at the end of the back end of the units that would be a good barbecue as it sits now, good barbecue area for the tenants. Yeah, there's just, there's a lot of good space there, a lot of good space. And we're a half block from the bus stops, from our, you know, our core center. We're across the street from the post office. Wheeler's only food trucks right across the street. I mean, it's really, you know, the location is really advantageous. Yeah, and, the Salmonberry Trail was mentioned. You know, we're a half a block from that when it comes through.
And there's a canoe launch a block away.
Yeah, yeah. And a city park a half a block away. You know, so it's really an ideal location. And our community is really excited to get it up and running. You know, they're excited for the work we've done thus far, getting it cleaned up and turned around, yeah.
Well, the idea I got from your application was that you guys are gonna finish this no matter what, but, getting some grant funding will help you get it done quick, right?
That's fair.
Because you're kind of doing it while you're doing your other work,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
How have you been funding, the work you've done so far?
Hard work, sir. We make it, we spend it on this building, we make it, we spend it on this building.
And yet you mentioned that Reinhardt Clinic and the city are both supportive. Any possibility that they could kick in some funds?
No, the hospitals are ready to give me deposits to hold these spaces when they're finally available. And I won't take their money because currently I don't know when they'll be available. And I can't project the date because we do approximately 2 to 3 jobs just to get our guys on this job for 1 to 2 days.
Yeah.
So it's questionable when, you know, which job can actually help me fund enough to do it.
I have a question and a comment, sort of a comment, because, as a person representing a healthcare, major healthcare employer, and who works really closely with the Reinhardt Clinic, I am very excited, and I think it's really important to emphasize the fact that there is guaranteed, occupancy of this building in perpetuity by healthcare workers, that just goes without saying. So the need is going to be ever present, and the proximity and everything else is extremely, you know, beneficial to that employer in the community that is being served with, you know, otherwise would have very low healthcare access. We have one clinic there, but they provide some really essential services, and I think are the only facility.
They have a skilled nursing.
So that's what I mean, and so they're providing a really, really incredibly important service to the county, and I know they're not operating at capacity because they don't have enough workforce. So just throwing that out there as a point of advocacy for the development itself, and we're located and interested in renting it. My question though is about maintenance. Is that something that you guys are going to continue to
Yes.
do? Okay.
Yeah, she's a certified or registered property manager, and obviously I've been in the construction trade 30+ years. And not only are we doing the work, but we'll maintain the building.
We don't plan on getting rid of this building, it owns us.
And we actually live a block away, the home we live in is a block away, so we can't hide from our responsibilities.
Okay, other questions? Thank you both very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the presentation.
Thank you for considering our proposal.
All right, go ahead and take a few minutes to finish up your cards while I take a few minutes to transition here to the next presentation. We'll have Lisa Grunder up next.
Take that.
Right, I agree. I think I mean, this
Huge for you. A little bit of time. Yes, you're picked, yes.
She's got it.
Oh, yes.
Question to TJ. On filling out our forms, if, for example, a project is in a building and it doesn't have an opportunity for outside landscaping, how should we fill out our forms?
So I would like for the finance committee to think a little bit about that during our next meeting. This is our very first round of these grants, and we said multifamily, so this project fits. It's a really great point, Ed. We'll be taking recommendations from committee members and passing that along to the Housing Commission on the 1st of October to comment.
Don't want to discourage these type of projects, but, and then looking at the points and what we're doing, and what we don't have the opportunity to get.
Yeah, it's an excellent question.
It was the day when you did it at Toastmasters, I was like,
Yeah, it looks like everybody's about done. Lisa Griner.
Good morning. I know it's hard to hear, so I'm going to use my teacher voice because I am a dance teacher, and so I have a naturally loud voice because I use it every day. My name is Lisa Griner, and I want to thank the Housing Commission members for this opportunity. Many of you also may know that I am on the radio in the mornings, home today on KTIL. And TJ has come in and talked a lot about all the work that the Housing Commission has done over the last year, 2 years? It's been about a year, whatever. And I'm excited because it's all been behind the scenes until now, and so I'm excited that this is an opportunity that now the community is going to see the work that the Housing Commission is doing and where that's kind of going. So, go ahead. So I own the building at 312 Main, and I have a lovely diagram on here, although I don't know how much you can see it. I will use my fingers. So, because I get asked every time, and actually Maria just asked me this as well. This is the Jones-Knudsen building, but I only own this part of it, right there. My dance studio is in the main floor. We have a basement that is dusty and musty and being used right now for seismic upgrades. It is 5,500 square feet. It is a 113-year-old building. So the construction process has been interesting because you tear down the drop ceiling and it is not what we thought in there. Or it's what we thought in only certain parts and other parts are not. It is a gigantic 5,500 square foot can of worms. We bought this building in December of 2018, and during the purchase process, and even in the months that followed, the question of what are we going to do with the second story kept coming up. We actually go to the next slide. Yeah. So these are some pictures of the second story from different corners. As you can see, it's mostly open. We do have structural columns that run from the basement up through the second floor. But we kept asking, what are we going to do with it? Right now, it housed, or up until now, it's housed all of the storage for my studio, which has continued to expand somehow. We talked about office space. We talked about storage units. We talked about retail space. And housing was always a topic, but seemed so far out of reach. Like, we're not, my husband and I are not private investors, we are not real estate developers, we didn't have working capital, and we thought that would be super cool and it's needed, but I just don't even know how we would make that happen. Until Sierra Lauder, who's now a realtor and worked for the chamber at the time, approached me and said, hey, we know of this grant through the state. It is called the Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant. And if you are interested in putting housing up there, you would qualify for that grant. So actually I wrote down what specifically that grant was for. And interestingly, it's through the Oregon State Parks and Rec Department. It's through their heritage, arm of that department. So the purpose of the revitalization grant is to acquire, rehabilitate, and construct buildings on properties in designated downtown areas statewide. Projects may include facade improvements, accessibility enhancements, basic utilities, and second floor renovations, and more. So the chamber applied for that grant on our behalf and was awarded that grant. It's a $200,000 grant, so that's kind of helped us kick off the process, the permitting, and a little bit of the physical work that we're doing now. So that started the whole process. We were awarded or received our permits earlier this year. So our project includes 3 two-bedroom units, which I didn't realize how small this is going to be, but I'm glad I outlined these in colors because it makes it a little bit easier. So the blue outlines are 2-bedroom units. There's one here, and one here. Interesting to note, as a former apartment renter, this is the only shared wall right here between any of the apartments, which is a kitchen and 1 bedroom. This is a 1-bedroom unit down here in yellow, and then in the middle here are storage units, not only for my business, but then also potential units for tenants. I think this unit actually has storage in it, but the rest of them just have normal closet space. Just to orient you about where this is Main Avenue, this is the movie theater, and over here is what I affectionately call the Elks Alleyway, because it doesn't really have a name. This unit does share, this whole side shares a wall with the movie theater, but really this is where the movie theater is. And every time I talk about this project, have questions of, well, you're going to have a dance studio downstairs. Yeah. People are going to move in and know that there's a dance studio and a movie theater. We're doing what we can for soundproofing, obviously fireproofing. The studio's done at 8 o'clock. We're 5 hours a night. We're not moving the studio in after people move in, so people will know. Let's see. Each of the 2 bedrooms are 1,000 square feet. The 1 bedroom is 700 square feet. Part of this project includes an updated back alleyway. So this is, I'm standing in the Elks parking lot when I took this picture. This is the back entrance that will be used for the tenants. So they will not be coming in through the front part of my building where the studio is. And then down here is a real sexy rendering of what it will look like. Doors, awning, lighting, some planters. It does have an ADA ramp on it. So that will kind of spruce up that south end of the alley, which is very visible when you drive through. It's an alley, but that part really isn't, because it's not. It's the Elks parking lot, so it's very open, but it's also very visible when you drive by on 4th Street. Let's see. Oh, and I always get asked about parking. The city chief of police gave us a letter stating that there was enough off-street or on-street parking available that we did not need to provide parking spaces for our tenants. But we will be advising them maybe they could get a parking space with the Elks if they pay their membership. So maybe that'll work hand in hand with the Elks. They'll get more members. Yeah, they'll get more members. Let's see. So work started this summer. We received permits earlier this year. My studio actually moved out this summer. We moved over to Diamond Art Jewelers, and literally just yesterday, this is the nicest clothes I've worn this week because I've been in scrubs all week. We've been moving a lot of stuff around. We have several storage units north of town. So the studio moved out. We did seismic upgrades down in the basement. I think there's seismic upgrades happening starting this week or next week on the 2nd story and the floor. a water line was installed, we have to, because it's a 113-year-old building, we gotta bring it up to code. We have to add sprinklers to both the main floor and the second floor, so a main water line was installed for that. So a lot of like infrastructure stuff, nothing super fun. I think the back entrance is really fun because it's way easier to get upstairs now than it was before. But the work is gonna continue even when my business is open. So I'm planning on opening for classes September 12th. The contractor and I have a very, I'm using Banks Construction, by the way, very boring. He's very familiar with downtown businesses and renovations. We worked out a plan where construction can continue and I can have classes and it will not obstruct anything and it will keep the project going in a timely manner. Let's see. Okay, can we move to the next one? Oh, this is something I forgot to mention. So this is upstairs. We have these super cool, it's a pretty low ceiling, but these really cool cornices that are all around the building, and we're planning on keeping those and making them a part. They're going to be very industrial too, the apartments, but keeping them as part of the characteristics of each of the apartments because it's such a cool. And we found there have been so many things that they have found tearing down walls or down in the basement. It's been pretty cool. We're kind of collecting those. I don't know how many use them. We'll find a way to use them. So, who is the tenant for this? I jokingly wrote on my little notes here that the tenant is me when I was 25 years old. And I don't mean a female and I don't mean age-wise, just like where I was in life. I was living in Southern California, in San Diego. I was making really good money. I had a great job, was renting, was considering buying something, and even a 900 square foot, one bedroom condo was $450,000. And there was no way that that was happening with my budget. So, from day one, the ideal tenant is someone who makes too much to qualify for low income, but maybe isn't ready or hasn't saved enough or isn't looking to buy permanently at that time. This is probably phase 2, but this has always been in the back of my mind. I would love to have a furnished unit available that could be rented like room almost, where you could have two people that don't know each other have 2 separate leases. But something furnished month to month for short-term hospital employees. I know that there are fellows and residents that come in for a short term to fulfill their schooling obligations. And we sleep on people's couches. One of them was a hip hop teacher that came years and years and years ago, and somebody I know said, hey, there's this lady in town for 3 months. She wants to teach hip hop. And I was like, yeah, come over and teach a couple of workshops. And getting to talk to her, she was sleeping on somebody's couch because there was nowhere for her to stay. And that was probably 2017. So short term in the sense of like month to month, for hospital employees, traveling nurses, corporate housing, NSC Aero has an employee coming in, school district has an employee coming in, and they haven't found something. That's my goal at some point, is to have a unit available that's furnished. Yes. Okay, so how would this grant help? So our project total is $750. I mean, that's what it is right now, but like I said, it's a 113-year-old building, and our costs have already doubled, not only from construction, but just from construction costs, but just opening up walls and the ceiling and, all the things that happen, the can of worms. We have already received the grant from Oregon Main Street and are in the process of using that. I've asked for an $80,000 grant through this granting process from the Housing Commission. I also have a pre-application in with TURA for a $100,000 grant and potentially a $100,000 low-interest loan. And then we are working with Umpqua, who's our mortgage holder, and they're working on a process right now to see getting a capital loan to help fund that gap, which would be a construction loan and would be on a draw. What's TURA? Tillamook Urban Renewal Agency. It's City of Tillamook, sorry. Yeah, so that's my nutshell. Funny, Ed, that you asked about green spaces, because that is my building. And as soon as you said that, I said to TJ, I was like, that's me. Our property line is our building. We have no green space, other than adding planters on the back, which we had to get an encroachment permit from the city for our back stoop. So, yeah, I mean, it is, my building line is my property. So, yes, that is me.
I think the review process isn't gonna just add up numbers, they're gonna look at
Yeah, sure.
the reality of the.
Yep. I'm also, if anybody would like to come take a tour, I'm happy to give tours, like, for real. It's fun. It's an old building. The basement's kind of creepy, but we can go down there. So, will you go back to slide 2? And I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
Will a grant from Tura provide, improvements to the facade?
What facade? This facade?
Oh.
This?
Yeah.
Not at this time. We're talking about the backside of the alley for the Tura project. And but thank you for asking about that, because as I said, like, this yellow line delineates the property split here, and this is its own property. It is very, the roof line of these two buildings are not the same, even though the facade is there. This property, the roof line actually drops down to right above, and you can see it from the backside. It's more like a crawl space attic here, but it's right above the windows.
That's 4th Street we're looking at?
This is Main Avenue, this is the movie theater right here.
Is there rooftop access, and if so, would that be a potential green space area that would be like a community garden?
If you would like to get on a ladder and put it on the awning to climb up there, sure. That's how we get up there. No.
Would there be an opportunity for doing things like stormwater retention, things on the roof? You can actually do gardens, not necessarily for people use, but potentially for environmental and ecological purposes. Is that something that's been explored?
Possibly, right now when grass grows up there, because it does grow up there, there were, not on our side, on the other side, there was a nest of ducks that were living up there. But it's actually more detrimental to the roof itself, because it's a flat roof.
Quick question, in terms of establishing up to 120%, you listed some, professions that probably would potentially fit into that envelope. But if you rented the spaces out kind of more short term, then you'd have to screen people, maybe quite a few people as you rotate it. Probably your how you do it.
How to screen people?
Yeah, if you go up to 105%, then, our criteria for our loan. And then also I can ask if any of the other funding sources had any criteria you had to do.
No, the Oregon Main Street grant, the only criteria is that you are renovating, that it fits within their criteria, which is renovating a second-story downtown building, which is exactly what that is. And as far as screening, I mean, it would just be, I've lived in month-to-month rentals. I rented for 15 years in San Diego, and actually even Salem. So, I mean, I've lived in month-to-month, I've lived in year-long leases. It's just a higher turnover, and I would probably partner with, the hospital, or let the big employers know that we have this available, and kind of go off of their recommendation.
But that's not what you're building now, right?
Right now, we're just building 4 units, yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
This is really for TJ and the rest of the commissioners here. I know that the intent of this grant round is to fund projects that are serving up to their 20% AMI, but I guess the question is, if the rents that are established fit the income level, does the developer have to vet the impact of the individual rent?
We discussed that when we were looking over the criteria. Yes, the answer is yes. And they already do that, to make sure that you make enough to live in the unit. So it's simply the same exact criteria in another couple of minutes to check that second box. And they do not need to check annually. The intent is to build upward mobility, so if somebody gets a raise, if somebody gets a different job, their income increases, they will will not be screening every year. The administrative burden on both the maintenance, or the manager as well as the government would be way too high.
And thank you for saying something about managing. My husband is very mechanical. I am planning, I know, oh, she left, Peggy. I'm gonna actually talk to the SBDC. They have a property management, course that's available. Unfortunately, it happens at the same time when I teach at night, and so story of my life. I have dance. But we plan on managing it and maintaining it ourselves. My husband is extremely mechanical, and, he basically oversaw when we built our full dance studio out, so.
And Lisa, you mentioned a ramp in the back, an
Mhm.
ADA ramp.
Mhm.
Is it just stairs upstairs? Maintenance is very, making accommodations for ADA or something like that?
So the plans were approved with stairs.
Okay.
And it was a question for a long time about like a personal lift, and we were told that we didn't need one.
Okay. But energy efficiency too, your.
Oh, yeah, I mean, like Tyler said, that's kind of a given
Mhm.
at this
Okay.
point.
Thanks. Can you tell us a little bit about, I know you said it was very boring, but what's his experience with construction?
Oh, gosh. Well, Barry's been I just know this because I just had to write this out for Tura. Barry's been in the construction business with his own business at Banks Construction since 1992. He has done large commercial buildings, he has done small residential renovations, locally, commercial buildings, he's done the YMCA building, DeGard Brewing, when it was the old Napa building, he renovated that over into DeGard. I'm trying to think now the rest of them, the Schooner, thank you, yes, Jim. So and one of the reasons that we picked him was because he is so knowledgeable, not only in the construction industry, but has done other buildings in downtown and understands, he's been such a wealth of knowledge, and it's so great to work with because he says, oh, you need to, like, work with Megan on any permit. We have to cut a water line, but hey, by the way, you need an ODOT permit, and you need a sidewalk permit, and you need this, and you need that, and so, his knowledge has been, yeah, amazing.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh, wait, I thought.
What will this do for Main Street, having some residents on this particular building?
I think it will bring some more life to the area. Right now, there are businesses on the front part, there's, Sheer Bliss, and then Joel Baker owns the little portion there, and then us and the movie theater. But not a lot is happening on the backside, and that alleyway can be a little doomy and gloomy sometimes, and so it'll bring some life there. I know Sierra Lauder's been a big proponent of this project, and her goal is to paint the whole alleyway and make it lovely and beautiful and some type of artistic display, and so I just feel like it's going to bring some life and energy into downtown more.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's take a second to fill out our. You're looking good down there. How many fingers am I holding up here?
2.
You didn't have some eye surgery. Last time I saw you had these blinders.
Oh, I didn't even notice that, I'm sitting by you.
You already knew what was up, that's great. So I'm just putting on your, you're fine, yeah.
So Kevin, you are very soft-spoken. Just remember the mic is over here.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have to be soft-spoken.
No, please, yeah. We want anybody online to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
We want everybody online to hear too.
You're right. I was wondering why I didn't look at the phone. Yeah.
Okay, do we have just a minute? Okay. Oh, no, you say, I'm just gonna run. I'll be right back.
I'm actually for a couple of folks, I didn't have superintendent, I didn't know you, there was two, and we had the one.
Oh, I understand.
Okay, I don't think you just remain image and then. Yeah, I figured that. So if you could do that.
Yeah, I was actually planning on doing extemporaneously.
Maybe not.
So gratifying.
So exciting.
Really?
I don't see anybody writing, so I think we're good. So, Kevin, you want to take center stage for
Sure.
organization?
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. My name is Kevin. This is my wife, Katie Stuka, and we're here to present on Kingfisher Apartments. Before I get into that, though, I was just talking to TJ about how gratifying it is to see these projects presented. There's such a great variety. There's clearly a wave of activity, and I think you guys have done a great job of making this all come together. So, if nothing else, this has been a great morning. I wanted to say that Katie and I have been at this for 4 years. I'm happy to report that by the middle of next week, the foundation will be finished on our project and we'll begin framing. Yeah. So to give a little context around how long this project has been in the works, after Katie and I, with the help of Mary Jones and Jeff Sean, explored all the available land between Hebo and Nesquin, speculated on the pros and cons of multifamily versus mixed use versus cluster development for attainable housing, settled on a piece of property, had an offer accepted, then went to community development for a pre-application meeting with Director Absher. After all this, we met with Commissioner Bartline and asked him what he could do to help us realize workforce housing. And Commissioner Bartline mentioned a committee that he was thinking of forming but hadn't yet taken the initial steps. So here we are. Pretty cool. It's been quite a journey, and frankly, we might very well have lost the faith along the way, except that for all the bumps in the road, there's been as many great opportunities to see smart and pragmatic and kind-hearted people come together for something wonderful. Very reassuring and bolstering. So we've had the goal to create the most affordable and dignified housing possible in the heart of Civic City. We wanted this to be a project that demonstrated what's possible when community members work to solve a problem. Along with Jeff and Mary, we began a collaboration with Dean and Kathy Dara, homeowners in Pacific City and key members of our development team. Dean is on the board of a design build firm that specializes in building affordable multifamily along the I-5 corridor. Alan Jones, our architect, soon came on board. Alan has a home in Pacific City, and he's the principal of Jones Architecture, a firm that builds multifamily in every corner of the country. And Nathan Notworth Construction, our general contractor, committed to the project early too. Nathan has built and developed several multifamily projects in Oregon with an emphasis on the Oregon coast. Katie and I own a landscape company and have provided services to some of Nathan's projects through the years. In fact, we've worked with nearly every subcontractor in South Trumbull County, and as such, have leveraged whatever political capital we've earned these last 15 years, bringing as many local subcontractors to this project as
possible. We like to say that the project is hyper-local. And proof in point of this fact is that a member of our investment team was Nathan Knott's teacher in elementary school. All of our investors have a strong local connection, and that's almost necessarily the case, as we've been explicit that this is a double bottom line endeavor. We're limiting the financial returns in favor of reduced rent and increased social benefits. Consequently, we've been in talks with the fire department, the watershed council, several local businesses, and the Nestucca Valley School District about pre-leasing apartments. In fact, the school board unanimously approved to waive the school excise tax for this project, recognizing the dire need for workforce housing in Tillamook County. We've received in-kind and discounted services from many of our engineers, from several architects, including Alan, from the Nestucca Valley Sanitary Service, and many others. We're also receiving a $300,000 grant administered by Oregon Housing and Community Services to help pay for our SDC. OHCS has provided stalwart support, and I just can't speak highly enough for how great our partners there have been through all. So you see, there's a rising tide of enthusiasm, collaboration, and contribution from our community to make these apartments happen. The property where the Kingfisher will be sited was an empty lot that has a long history in Pacific City. It's ever been the site of a great fishing hole along the Nestucca River, particularly fruitful with the run of fall and spring Chinook. We knew that before any conversation about housing, we'd need to assure the locals that access to the fishing hole was sacrosanct. We also saw that access could be improved from the dodgy path that leads down to the riverbank. The Scotch broom and blackberry could be eradicated. Some native plantings encouraged along the southern end of the riparian area to create habitat, and we might be able to squeeze in a picnic bench overlooking the riparian area outside the setback. Through our business, Katie and I have had a long relationship with the Nestucca, Nesco, and Watershed Council. We've contracted many times to plant and maintain wetland and riparian mitigation sites over the years. So our first move was to reach out to ODFW and work out an access agreement that assured the public wouldn't be excluded from the river. We worked with ODFW and the Nestucca anglers to craft such an agreement, and I'm happy to report that there are probably, and this is true, half a dozen early anglers fishing for fall Chinook as we speak. There was yesterday. But the access isn't just for sportsmen. The riverside, and sportswomen, the riverside is a great space for anyone and everyone to commune with our river. We want the Kingfisher to feel like a central part of PC and South County community. We want to encourage the public that the riverside is their space. It'll contribute to a feeling of vitality that we seek to foster. The west side of our building was designed to accommodate the planned multi-use path that will stretch from Cape Kiwanda to Bob Straub. We've also abandoned our access on Pacific Avenue in order to make the Cape Kiwanda Drive and Pacific Avenue intersection significantly safer. Along with the county's purchase of the Kitty Porter Jensen property, the west end of Beachy Bridge will serve as the gateway of the Kiwanda corridor. What better way to show off our community than with a handsome apartment building for the local workforce at its center? And I really believe it's going to be handsome. Katie and I intend for the Kingfisher site to be a demonstration garden for vacuum planting. There's a great opportunity for creating forage, shade, and protective plantings for our local fauna, including the Kingfisher's namesake. Coyote Gardens, our business, specializes in creating gardens organically with an emphasis on native plants. We've designed biofiltration swales to handle the building's stormwater runoff. We've met on-site and off-site to discuss riparian plantings with the Watershed Council. We've saved as many trees on-site as possible, and we are already growing stock in our nursery at our home to use in the landscape. From the beginning, we intended for the structure to fit with an ecological perspective, an aesthetic perspective, as well as cultural. Alan designed a beautiful structure, and we stuck to our guns to have it sided natural cedar with a sloped roof, the look of our place. The units provide generous floor space with energy-efficient appliances and insulation values that exceed county requirements. But truthfully, the most meaningful aspect of Kingfisher's light ecological touch is its central location with proximity to services, recreation, and public transit. I really believe this represents one of the first opportunities to live in South Tillamook County without a vehicle. And if our tenants do require a vehicle, they will have multiple chargers available if they choose to go electric. But it's also important to point out that every unit on the first floor is accessible to people with disabilities. 2 of the units meet the highest standard of accessibility, NCA. We consulted with several people on the subject of accessibility, and one of the best pieces of advice we received was to provide opportunities for such people to visit their neighbors. just want to take a second, because that was one of the greatest pieces of advice we got through. To have a place for somebody who doesn't always have the opportunity to move freely, to roll across the hallway and visit a neighbor. And that's the epitome of what this project would be about. So brass tacks, we're asking for $350,000. The project is approximately a $6.6 million build. Prior to the pandemic, our expectations were closer to a $4 million build. In order to acquire funding, we had to raise approximately $3 million. The money we raised included private and public contributions that got us nearly to our goal. In order to cross the finish line, we committed to 2 private lines of credit that total $350,000. The generous loans helped us complete our equity campaign, but the money comes at an additional cost. The multifamily rental housing fund is a great opportunity for us to close the gap and eliminate an extra layer of liability and expense. We're almost there. It's been a struggle to get here, but so rewarding to see the building beginning to grow. And it's a great time right now to repeat our mantra, everybody deserves a chance to live. Hey, I guess questions are good for me. If you think most of the boxes are yeah.
Do you have a site plan, aerial shot?
We do have a site plan. If you go to our website, kingfisherpc.com.
Okay.
Kingfisherpc.com.
Happy to migrate over there.
Yeah, there would probably be. There's also an aerial shot on the website as well to show the precise location.
So it's similar where there's sort of 3 modules, and then within those 3 modules, there's 8 apartments.
How many total units?
There are actually 23.
23 total, so some of them don't line up exactly and are 2 bedrooms. There's a mix of studios and 2 bedrooms.
It's a good opportunity to point out that we very consciously decided to design what are called garden-style apartments, as opposed to sort of a monolithic single corridor building. And the reason why we took a tour with our architect early on of different options, and when we walked into a similar space and felt the light coming from the east and the west, and recognizing that in a scenario like that, where you walk into a hallway and there's 4 doors, and you go up the stairs and there's 4 more doors, instantly we recognized that it felt much more like a cluster of neighborhoods rather than a hotel. And that really spoke to us.
Where's the river?
It's been along here, so this isn't really a site plan. I guess it's more of just kind of shows the ground floor.
So the parking is between the buildings and the river?
There's some parking here, and then the other parking is tucked under. So you come in on the ground floor, and there's stairwells that go up to a first floor and a second floor.
Megan.
I have a 2-part question. One, when you look close to the river, is there potential flooding issues there?
It's outside of the floodway, and also the flood zone that comes through there. It's, the downstairs area, if there ever was flooding, it's all concrete.
Let me clarify that the special flood hazard area does not touch the building. It does pass through the asphalt parking lot, and the tuck-in parking is approximately 10-foot buffer, so it would be approximately 11 feet above the flood zone. So the first floor apartments are well away from any danger of flooding. Now, this last November, we had 12, at least in Pico, where we live, we had 12 inches of rain in 48 hours. And the river came up pretty high. And across the river at the airport, there was a plane whose belly was underwater. But the water hadn't yet even come up.
Well above, yeah.
And the second question, I noticed in the application that you have a maximum minimum
Yeah, Yeah, we actually went through the land use process with 25 apartments. And, long process, and through the course of that process, we talked with a lot of other business owners and kind of came to the conclusion that we wanted a balance more towards 2-unit apartments. And the reason why is because we wanted to facilitate more families. And we just felt like there was an opportunity there just to shift our proportions a little bit so that we could bring in more families. Our conversations and our own experiences with business owners is that it's great to have somebody that's sort of committed to being in the area. There's nothing like kids and a family and a steady job and a nice home to make somebody stick around.
We also got feedback that 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms are very desirable because you can have a roommate scenario, and so it actually becomes one of the lower price points for someone who's really looking for something affordable. We thought, well, this is a good way to get some people in there at even a little less a month. So we chose to combine some of those studios and make more 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms.
I will point out that if you're, I don't hesitate to use the word gaming, but this is, initially what we did is that we put an emphasis on studios, partly because it allowed for more revenue, particularly with regards to the taxes. So combining those units and moving towards 2-bedroom actually reduced the amount of revenue we were going to make. It also reduced some SDC fees and some construction fees. So it didn't work out quite as a wash, but it's something. Darren, did you have something?
Oh, thank you, Ed. I was just going to point out what Megan had raised, just more to say that in working with the Shlukas through this application for the land use review process, the building and the location, everything was intentionally designed to reduce risk of hazard and mitigate hazards that are present in the area.
We recently had Robert Bradley from VFW come out and do a site visit, and he pointed out that he spends most of his day going to construction sites where the builder wants to push it closer to the river. He says, not often you find a builder who wants to get as far away from the river as possible.
Now, the green space and, natural environment obviously lend themselves to a lot of outdoor recreation opportunities for tenants. Is there a plan for any, specific area or space for the families, to like have outdoor, picnic area or playground area or anything like that?
We wanted perhaps a picnic area to sort of overlook the river, but, the best part about this building is its proximity to the beach, proximity to the river, proximity to Bob Straub's, and it looks like with the county developing the Jensen property, that there's great opportunities across the way. So really, this building sits in the middle of the wilderness.
I know that you guys have a lot of, attention about this project early on. Do you feel that it has now, or are those who prefer not to have anything there still adamantly opposed?
There's definitely a couple that are still adamantly opposed, and I definitely feel, I had more than a few people come up and pat me on the back that wouldn't have 2 years ago. But no, I think that the building will be up and occupied before everybody's ever going to be able to run over. But great news is that we get that.
You kind of rose the cusp of awareness of housing crisis. You started before it and then reached to everybody's purview after you got going.
We had a.
I'm hoping that it will calm down.
True, a lot of people initially were saying, well, what are you talking about? We don't have a housing problem here. So, and we don't hear that as much when we first started. Thanks probably a lot to the work of this committee.
Hey, other questions for the commissioners? Thank you, Drew.
I do have one quick one, sorry. You mentioned that there's going to be public access as well to the mission. I can
be parking available, to the public, although we do have an agreement with Stop Anglers that they can use our parking spaces. And we do intend to create some vegetative buffers so that there's not a lot of wandering onto the parking lot or rendering. But I was sincere about wanting to create a sense of having public space. To me, if I were living in the apartment, it would be more appealing to me to be next to a park and next to that sort of positive activity than to have it exclusive for mine and the other tenants' uses. And that may not be true of everybody, but that's kind of the feeling.
Perseverance over the 4 years to get to this space. When they started this project, as you pointed out, the people were not as aware of the housing crisis and were just not in support and pulled out everything they could do to try to stop this. And, we've had developers that have walked away and been like, this is just too hard because we're not going to do this. Kevin K. I think have come head on to every challenge that you could have, and they said, we'll keep going, we'll keep going, we're gonna make this happen. So I appreciate your perseverance, because not only will you be bringing 23 housing units to Pacific City, you have set an example that this can be done. And I think one of the big things we were missing for years in Columbus County was examples that said this can be done, and you're there. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And, honestly, just the realization that this was a pilot project and that we wanted to demonstrate, hopefully that was possible, but if not, what the challenges were, that helped us do a lot of it. Okay. Thank you. Okay, well, people fill out their cards and, ready to.
I have extra copies of scorecards if anybody needs them. Anyone else that has a copy of the scorecards, or are you good?
Are you sure? No, I'm just here. Yeah, here, let me help you.
So you want me to present that? Yes, got it.
Sure. Okay, cool.
college when you're ready.
Everything signed up? I'm just moving through these, sorry.
Handouts are dangerous,
Yeah. Please do.
Yeah, we're doing handouts, I know some of the font is quite small, and so, anyway, just, quick introduction, myself, Nate Palmer, Scott Emholt, are, developers and investors, and everything on the project. Scott has, a 30-plus year experience in construction, been in Nehalem for 25 years, and doing a lot of work primarily on the north side in Manzanita, and Nehalem and around there. He's done 7 multi-unit development projects, between 2 and 8 units. I'd say that, again, he's also an investor in this project. I'm also one of the investors and developers in this. I have 14 years of experience in development from multifamily, commercial, and single-family rental experience. Started in New Jersey, which is where I was until about 3 years ago, but grew up in Newburgh and then moved out there. So anyway, right now for the past 5 years, Scott and I have been dealing with wetlands and all sorts of chaos on a project in Manzanita with single-family market rate housing homes there, but we're now just about to submit there. So anyway, that's about 26 units that we're working on single-family development there. One of our development goals with this project, there's a lot of different attributes to multifamily housing where apartment is appropriate in certain places, and then other, 3, 4, or smaller plexes are appropriate as well. We really wanted residents to have a sense of pride and ownership in their unit, and we think we accomplished that by making the units look more like single-family homes. And so part of the design, here's kind of a quick overlay of it, but as you can see, each of these 6 buildings, which are all identical, are split right in the middle, with 1 unit on one side, 1 on the other. And we have the entrances set back a little bit, so they kind of look more like single-family homes. That was part of the design element that we really wanted. And then, again, there's a great place for apartments as well, but that was one of our goals here. We think that that's going to promote very long-term renters. We think people like having as few common walls as possible. I think you saw it from a couple of the presentations. So we think this is the way of accomplishing that. We'll go to the next slide. Again, we're doing 12 units. All the units are the same: 2-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom. They will all have a garage, and an additional parking space in front of it. So there's 2 parking places per unit, which we think is more than enough. All units are 800 square feet, so we think that they're ample size for a 2-bedroom apartment style living. Can you go to the next slide here?
I'm sorry, you said
800 square feet, yep. And then on the side yards here, we're planning on grass for the majority of the area. Native species of plants, which we're getting from Bay City, on what's going to be planted in there. But this will be a porch sidewalk, and then beyond the sidewalk, there's a curb, and then within that green space that's right now, it's actually just going to be shrubbery and other type of species or native species in that area. Go to the next slide. Here's a little bit more of a view of the site plan. So it's in Bay City. It has a connection with 3 different streets. So 5th Street on this side, 4th Street on that side, and then A Street here. In the back is a shared common area. That was one of the ideas also with people wanting to stay there longer, is having a shared community backyard. So everyone has their own space, you know, with a little patio behind it. But there's also a larger common shared space in the back. We haven't, on time frame of where we are on this project, purchased land about 2 months ago. So we're still kind of early. We've met with Bay City. They really like, you know, the project overall. Our goal going in to the project was to try to make this as workforce housing. We're wanting to get this at a price point of 100% of AMI on average between all the units. So in order to do that, we're talking with them about potentially pushing out some SDC fees over a period of time. But we're not really getting a whole lot of other grants for things. So one of the things that Bay City is looking at adopting, and right after our meeting with them, they said they're going to put this on their next agenda item, is to adopt the Tillamook County 80 to 120% workforce housing initiative. So there's no decisions on it, but they said right after our meeting, we're going to put that on the agenda. So, so that's our goal, is, you know, to make it work for 100% AMI on average. Go to the next slide. Here's another site plan, so you get a little bit more of an idea. We're at 50% open space, 50% lot coverage. So including the driveways and the buildings, we're taking just under 50% of the lot. The rest will be all open green space. And then we'll have, you know, a fence. There's a restaurant on the other side here, so we'll have a fence to kind of buffer that, and a planter garden on the backside. All right, well, this is the reason I have the handout. It's probably too small for you guys to see what the heck's going on here. But this is just a kind of where we are in Bay City overall. You know, here's 101. You know, if you know the Art Center there, we're right across from the Art Center. So right downtown in the city. You can see this is the Art Center right across from our lot. We have a city park that's there. So one of the things when we were thinking about different ideas for the backyard, we were thinking about swing set and a bunch of other things. We were like, well, a lot of it's already there in the city park. And so we're thinking more of, you know, shared barbecue spaces and, you know, covered picnic areas and things like that for the shared common space. But again, we're only 2 months in, so we don't have that finalized. And then there's the restaurant right across from us as well. So we think it's really well located within the city for walkability. This is the high intensity zone of Bay City. And so one of the approved uses, in addition to a bunch of commercial uses, is high intensity residential zoning. So that's what we're proposing here. We think that commercial areas need to be supported. And we think that by having a vibrant downtown community with, you know, enough people there to support the businesses and the businesses for the people, this is a nice, you know, marry of those two things. Go to the next slide. Again, this is a little more of the site plan of where things are, just showing the detail of our, you know, parking spaces and where the actual units are. Go to the next slide. We worked with Bay City, and they were, you know, frankly, extremely helpful in, you know, getting this figured out. We met with them at pre-application meeting just a couple weeks ago, and, you know, they helped us with, you know, told us, even went to the site, found out where we have our catch basin already on site, just move it easily, where we can hook up, you know, water simply, sewer. It's really a very flat site, very buildable. I think, you know, frankly, from a contractor perspective, it's about as swing as you get. Yeah. So I won't go through all this, but this is kind of summary in your packet there of all the numbers. All kind of make this work. Again, all 12 units, right around 800 square feet. We're at 100% of AMI. We're looking at total, maybe the next sheet. Total overall costs here of $3.2 million. That includes the site, soft costs, building costs, financing costs, the entire thing. Overall, it's about $1 million of equity that we'll be putting in. A loan, about 60% value of the property from bank, which I work at, and then grant money for the other to make up some of the gap on the value to costs. So, overall, you know, I think our budget is really quite reasonable, as far as, you know, Scott has actually just a couple weeks ago got permits on a duplex that he was working on. He used those figures for all of our analysis here, and then put in a 10% contingency for, price increases. As, you know, I think we've mentioned, you know, prices have gone up a lot, and we kind of expect that they, will continue to as inflation is very high. Let's go to the next, slide. And so overall, doing, you know, analysis on it, we say that at 100% AMI, after expenses, we're at about $160,000 income per year. If you value that as, you know, kind of market levels at a 6% cap rate, that puts the value of the property about $2.7 million. Thing cost 3.2. So there's a gap there. Number one, with Bay City adopting the workforce housing 10-year tax credit, that gets the value closer to about $2.9 million. So then we're only at about a $287,000 gap, and that's what we're applying for here is about $240,000, which, you know, the other $40,000 we can kind of eat effectively. It's pretty close to the value there. So as far as, you know, financial feasibility, we're at about a 1.2 debt coverage ratio, which means that the income we get will have about 20% of that left over after paying all the financing costs of it. And then the investor return for this is, you know, initially at about 6%, and then over a long period of time, around 13%, which is on the low side of what investors require for projects, multifamily housing projects. And this is the detailed kind of pro forma, you know, if you have any questions on the numbers there, but I wanted to spell it all out. So, go to the next slide. So anyway, that's pretty much it of the plan. I just wanted to highlight some of the specific items that I know are part of the criteria that looking at that you guys are focused on. So again, we just purchased a lot about 2 months ago, so we are a little early in the process, but we finalized our site plan layout. And we're anticipating submitting to the Planning Commission within the next 2 to 3 weeks after some additional architectural design elements. One piece of feedback we've gotten is to do a little bit varying on some roof lines and things like that to make them a little bit more unique. You know, doing a couple different color schemes, and we're going to add some architectural elements to, you know, that complement the art center across the way. We have not spoken with any other like local employers or organizations or anything like that at this point, but we do plan on talking with them once we get permitted and everything down the line. We just haven't gotten to that place yet. Energy efficiency, these are all going to be brand new units. All of, you know, everything will have energy efficient appliances, LED lighting, energy efficient windows, up to, you know, building standards. As far as accessibility of the units, they're all going to be 2 levels, so they're not ADA accessible by people. But we do think that one of the important elements here is our shared common area where people will be able to, you know, be more connected. And then additionally, we think people, by being in a downtown area, there's going to be a more healthy lifestyle for people. They're going to be able to walk to local shops, walk to the restaurant, walk to all things. So I think there's going to be a lot less overall just needing to drive your cars all over the place. Go ahead. That's pretty much it. Questions?
You say you purchased the property just 2 months ago.
Yes.
Did you purchase the plans from the previous owner?
No, the previous owner was just going to subdivide it into 4 lots and do 4 houses on it. That's what they were planning on doing. They had a previous failed development, something that was, you know, commercial on the bottom and residential on top, but no, we developed this over the last few weeks.
Good job.
So there's no current housing?
It's to vacant land, yeah.
You don't mention in the application how many units are permitted for that site?
Yeah, so we talked to Bay City about this, and they said, well, you have some other restrictions. Lot coverage, and some other things that'll automatically just, essentially, the 12 units they seem happy with. We gotta go in front of the planning commission to get it approved. We are not there yet, but, you know, they feel quite hopeful on that.
When they provide a zoning verification to you, that'll.
Yeah, we print that in.
You have that,
Yeah,
so did
yeah.
that say the number of units total
It,
they'd allow?
no. They basically in there, they say this is high intensity, which specifically allows high density residential, right? So apartment style buildings and things like that would be what they typically use, but they don't talk about the specific number of units.
Nate, I always thought they were particular about having mixed use, because they wanted to add commercial to the downtown, so we've overcome something.
We've spoken to them about that. The reality is housing is so much of a need. And, you know, we've thought about whether we could put a commercial unit in there if we wanted to, but we think it might just sit empty. There's more of a need for housing than commercial right now. Commercial places got devastated the last 3 years in the pandemic, so we need people here to support the existing commercial spaces rather than have a lot more. So the city's being on board with that. Yeah.
Other questions? Did I understand that we performed it be based on a 100% AMI?
Correct. Yep. Yes, we put everything at the 80 to 100% in the application, but our goal is, you know, basically everything average of 100% AMI.
Have a design comment.
Yeah.
Just for consideration, I think it looks nicer when the garage isn't frontage and therefore that there's variety that one can use out. As a potential venture.
Yeah. What we really wanted to do, frankly, was get a lot of cars off the street. And we think that when you give people a garage space, they're also be a little bit oversized for storage on the side as well. We've had experience where people would use them and go and get in there, and so it looks better. I totally hear what you're saying, but we are trying to be very cost efficient on this as well. So by making all the units the same, it affords us, you know, to make it really efficient. So.
I think just on that point, I think it addresses livability also, having the garages, and I haven't seen all their presentations, but there's not too many where you can fit garages in, and in the wintertime here, it's miserable, you know, and my wife talks to her all the time, and she loves the fact that she can pull in, get all her stuff out of the car and not be dragged. And so that's one of the reasons why we went to this more of a residential look than an apartment building type of a style, so.
I was just gonna add on to that, I have lived previously in one where the garages were out front, but the entryway was between the garages. This is hugely improving over that, because the two doors are next to each other.
Yeah. We think people, that was a big thing, is we wanted to make them look like single-family homes, and people will want to live there long-term. So also, I think another presenter pointed out, 2-bedroom units is what I think is the greatest need. You know, there's needs for other things as well, but that way you can have people share as a roommate, and you can also have, you know, some family, maybe not huge families, but some families there as well. Yeah.
Do I understand correctly that in the application you said that you're committed to only 10 years of affordability?
Yeah, we want to be realistic about it, to be honest with you. The Pillen County 10-year tax abatement program is for 10 years. And so we don't know if after 10 years that this will continue to work as, or, you know, with the financials will work. It's hard to predict 2 years out, to be honest with you. I just want to be realistic about it. I would like to make it for as long as we possibly can. I just don't know what I can really commit to realistically. So that's what I committed to.
Not that you have this planned out yet, but is the intent to potentially sell the property after 10 years?
No. This is we're keeping this for a long time. That's the idea. We show that in the performa just to show the financial analysis on it, of what somebody did. But Scott was telling me this is part of his retirement plan. Yeah. For taking care of it and managing it. So I have experience, you know, kind of managing, what's the term? Not stabilized housing, but rent-controlled housing out in New Jersey when I'm, you know, renting duplexes and things like that. So as far as management and maintenance and all that, we'll be doing it ourselves.
You guys just got project was already, do you have a timeline for when you would hope you would be leasing these up?
Yeah, we want to be realistic about it. We think that we started construction maybe 6 months from now. Between all the permitting and building and everything, you know, we've been working on this thing in Manzanita for 5 years. And then our, you know, normal build timeline would normally be 12 months, but we also know things are slow on the coast, so it's 18 months. So we're just planning for April of 2024 for it to be all online.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate the drawing material.
Thank you.
Very much. Take a little time to fill this out, and does everybody want to take a little short stretch?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take MCF.
I just had my staff meeting last night. We had a staff meeting.
Are you done with your scorecard?
Just a minute, I want to take pictures.
Okay, sounds good. I'll swing back around just a little bit.
That still makes you nervous?
That's a good one.
Okay, let's get started again. I presume everybody's hungry for lunch. Just have some brief reports on what our subcommittees have been doing. Kristen, you want to talk about what outreach is up to?
Outreach, I missed a meeting this month because of travel and lack of coordination. We did put out one article about the funding, which I think was pretty widely distributed and great turnout.
Actually, yeah, no, if you want to say.
Thank you. We really need a couple of new members in our outreach committee because we've got, we're now missing Dale, Bill, and Sue, Barbara. McLaughlin won't be with us any longer, so, Shelley and I are holding down the fort.
Two-woman show.
And it's a really fun committee, so we would love to have other people help us write stories, do PR, essentially for our organization and let people know what's happening.
If I can just piggyback on that, because it's so relevant, listening to Katie and Kevin talk about their experience and the evolution of public perception over the course of the 4 years that we've been working on this. It's a long game, and this is probably, I'd say, 90% of the work is in perception, and based on facts, but also based on feelings, especially of the people in the community where projects are being proposed. And so we do really need to devote as much energy and effort to our outreach efforts as we do to zoning changes or legislative, development, property availability, because all that stuff doesn't matter if there's a huge public pushback in the community when everything else is lined up. So just putting our pitch out for why it's important, and, if it's of interest, we can also, if there's specific skills that we like to write, but we don't want to attend another meeting, we can get talking points, we can send some be out for interviews with people, which Chris has done for us. So you don't have to always be on the committee to support the work of the committee.
So another quick thing to mention is I do have one ex officio member that I'll be presenting to the executive committee during this month, who was very interested and eager to join this specific committee on outreach. So that's very exciting to hear. Also, keep in mind for everybody that if you're not on a committee right now, we talked a little bit about the fact that we'll be doing committee assignments very, very soon. But so if you're not on a committee and you'd like to be on a committee, or you'd like to move to another committee that you've been on for a while, please let me know. We'll be sitting one-on-one with each of the commissioners and finding out exactly where you'd like to be. And the other thing that I'll mention is that we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. And so for those who actually like to write and get out there and talk a little bit with the community, we've had a lot of good opportunities there.
And just to clarify the writing process, we go over everything tooth and nail, and everybody pitches in and makes it much better than whatever it started at. So you're not thinking of like producing a final product. You do that correctly.
And Kristen was a professor, by the way, and so she's able to really nail down some of those details that we need to be aware of.
So you run up to 80 days. You know, I've been a little out of work, Mr. Scar, do you have anything you want to say, you got the last house?
I would just talk briefly about the meeting we had with the director of ELCD. It was a great meeting. She really expressed an interest and a willingness for the new director to look at the state of Oregon's land use program. I know, acknowledging that having been in place for 50 years, it was probably a time to begin to look, so first to celebrate what has, been preserved and how it has worked, but then to look at what parts of it may not be working any longer. So that was great news. She also shared that as yesterday, they released a set of recommendations that they have related to how housing can be more accessible, how can we do that in their code. So I have not had a chance to read that. I got that press release late yesterday, but I encourage you all to look for that. I'm sure TJ, you got a copy of that you can share with everyone.
Development Finance will get it first, but it'll go out to the whole commission before our next meeting.
Perfect. So that was a really exciting opportunity, and I walked away from it feeling really hopeful. The other part of it is that our regional solutions representative has changed for Essex. He's our new DLCD representative. He comes to it from the city of Astoria, where he was their planner. He is, I think, going to be fabulous. Not that our previous representative wasn't, but he just brings a new eye and new energy to it. So I think that gives us some opportunity as well.
What's the background of the new director?
She has worked at the state for 15 years. She worked in the Water Resources Department, but she also worked in Oregon, which is economic development. She actually has I believe it was more of a international relations and marketing background. You will love her, Dr. Bateman. So anyway, she's fabulous, and she really said, part of her thinking around it comes from that economic development background and recognizing that the environmental protection side of what our land program does is very, very important, and it has to pair with what the economic development side of our land use program needs to do. And I think that, certainly folks in the room as we talk, that, that previous directors have really come far more with the environmental side of it in mind and the economic development side of it sort of, which has been a secondary maybe, right? But it was really about the other piece of it. So I think she brings a different focus. So it was a great meeting. We had city managers, the planning commission members, obviously county representatives. But it was a really good group, and I would say that Leila Amon from, Leila Amon from Manzanita did an amazing job of just laying out the plight of a small city in trying to work within the current land use program from the state and the challenges. They think they're giving us all of these tools, but in fact, there is basically impossible to do because there are multiple counties there, maybe Thomas as well, Jerry's perspective was very similar. So really, I think the director had an opportunity to hear directly from our small city planners, where we're handicapped, where we are just left with no opportunity. So I think it was a great meeting. TJ and Sarah were also there.
it was really a great meeting. And then the other meeting we had was with, and the people there with, Alyssa Guthrie, the new director of NOHA, which was another great meeting, and I think it ended up going for like 3 hours. A lot of people watched at the 2-hour mark, and then there was a small group that we had to literally push out of the library, because there wasn't too much fun with her, but it was really amazing, because not only does she come into this to be the housing authority, specific to the programs we're used to in the housing authority, but she has a very good background in housing development as well. So I think there's an opportunity there that we have just been missing in the entire 20 years that I've been in Oklahoma County working with the housing authority. We have not had that. We have not had that expertise, and she really does bring depth of expertise that will make a huge difference, I think, as we look at moving our housing.
Two, people we talked about having a really ongoing engagement personnel, which I think really helps it. When you come in like the fund director, it was great. It was really good.
Absolutely, and she seems very committed to the 3-county region, which is something else that we have not seen in a NOAA director in my history. They have stayed very faithful to their office in Lawrence, and she's like, absolutely, if I get anything, I'll come. Unfortunately, of course, their board meeting occurred at the same time as the communication. But, yes, but we did ask her to change the board meeting. Why not shoot from the net? So, 2 great meetings that just really, I think, speak to the participation that we can have with other agencies for our county, to looking to move the dial, and feedback that we got from both of them is just they're very impressed with what's happening in our county, and that is really a lot of the work that you all are doing. So the Housing Commission is, you guys are a leader in what's happening in Rural County. So I know that you're working really, really hard, and I hope that you realize and recognize that you are really
The county and the cities are working together collaboratively, the team is really strongly, and I love that.
Yeah, I would second that. That would be the piece that I'd like to emphasize as well. Not only do we have the state supporting counties and cities, but the state recognizing that the county and the cities are working together and thinking that through as they start to have some funds aside, deciding how they want to earmark that, both for assistance to communities as well as how they'll point some human capital